rush, closing the gap we made. Oh, how I miss your touch. Push through the ceiling now, we can raise it up. Am I dreaming? Come feel what I feel. Come see. Two hearts inside your eyes. Can you feel the rush? Closing the gap we made. Oh, how I miss your touch. Push through the ceiling now, we can raise it up. Am I dreaming? Come feel what I feel.
Please be seated. This is a judge's worst nightmare. Okay. When the remaining juror comes in, we're all going to rise out of respect for that juror. Because all jurors deserve respect. Please be seated. Warren, now we have two humorous stories to share with jurors. Warren and I have worked together for many, many years, and over the course of all of the jury trials, sometimes mistakes happen, and that was one of the, I think, funnier ones. So, but Warren's one of our most experienced and most reliable bailiffs, so he does a wonderful job. We're back on the record, State versus Miu. The attorneys are present. Mr. Miu is present. The jury is present. We are ready to resume the testimony. Mr. Smestad, who is the next witness?
Janelle Duxbury.
Ms. Busbury, would you please come forward? Please face the clerk, raise your right hand. She will administer the oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir.
Please have a seat in the witness chair. Mr. Smestad.
How will you state your name for the record, please?
Janelle Duxbury,
How do you spell your last name?
Duxbury.
What do you do for a living, Janelle?
I work at a factory,
What town do you live in?
St. Croix Falls.
In Wisconsin?
Yes.
Do you recall July 30th of 2022?
Yes, I do.
Were you part of the Carlson family group that was tubing down the Apple River on that day?
I was.
Are you related to the Carlsons?
No.
Friend of the family?
Yes.
Do you? Second.
Yes, you may.
Janelle, I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit, I guess, 26A. Recognize that?
I do.
Tell us what it is.
It's a photo of all of us together.
All right, and are you in this picture?
I am in the black swimming suit.
All right. Are you drinking or not drinking?
In that photo, I am not drinking.
Okay. Is it fair to say that you did have some drinks that day, though?
I did.
Can you tell us what you had to drink?
We had stopped at a riverbank. I got offered a shot of butterscotch schnapps, and then I had, I believe it was a Truly's or Budweiser. Actually, it was probably both. I cannot remember exactly what I drank.
You know how many drinks you had?
For sure the one shot and probably a total of 1 beer. I had been trying different flavors of everybody else's, but I never finished the full beer of my own.
You feel like you were impaired that day?
No.
All right. At some point while your group was going down the river, did you come across a disturbance of some sort?
We did.
What did you see when you first noticed the disturbance?
I was laying back in my inner tube and I was taking a little nap, and all of a sudden my friend Rhyley had tapped me on the shoulder saying, "Hey, let's go check it out." So I got up and I followed behind her. I could hear a lot of commotion, but I could not make out distinctive voices or what they were saying or anything. And yeah, that's how it started.
When you followed Rhyley over, did you hear any specific words or phrases?
I did not hear anything specific.
It's fair to say there was some yelling going on.
Oh, for sure, yes.
Did you see Mattison Cohen when that occurred?
I did. She was already up there
All
by
right.
the time I had gotten there.
What was Mattison Cohen doing?
I actually did hear Maddie yelling, swearing at the gentleman and telling him to get the F out of here.
Okay, which gentleman was that?
Huh?
Who was she yelling at?
Oh, it was Nicolae Miu.
All right. At the time, did you know who he was?
I did not.
You know now?
Yes.
Did you see Maddie yelling at Mr. Miu
Yes.
when you heard it?
Yes.
Did you see Mr. Miu react in some fashion?
At first he was just standing there kind of like looking at everybody, and then I could not see his hand punch her, but I could see like his left shoulder had dropped like a little bit, and then I could see, I believe maybe it was part of his elbow because Maddie was impairing my view of everything. But I had seen the right side of her face turn towards me, and she kind of stumbled down and got back up and then walked away.
Did you see Mr. Miu's hand or fist make contact with Maddie's face?
I did not see it make contact, no.
All right. Did you saw the reaction?
Yes.
After Mr. Miu did whatever he did to Maddie, what happened next?
A lot of chaos and yelling broke out. I remember seeing Dante run up immediately and punch him in the face, yelling, "You never hit a woman." I saw Nicolai punch Dante back. Then I believe that I saw Dante hit Nicolai once more. I thought it was a punch, but I did watch the video and later found out that he was smacking him.
All right. Whereabouts were you standing when that all occurred, when Dante hit Mr. Miu?
I was a little ways behind Rhyley. I don't know any of the boys in the group that I was standing next to, but I was standing back a little ways.
All right.
To the back and to the right of Maddie and Rhyley, a little ways.
Did you see AJ Martin get stabbed?
I did not.
Did you see Dante get stabbed?
I did not.
Do you know who Isaac Schuman is?
I do. I know of him now, but no, I do not know him.
At the time, did you see Isaac Schuman get stabbed?
I did not.
Did you see Rhyley Mattison get stabbed?
I did.
All right. Can you describe what happened when you saw Rhyley get stabbed?
She had backed up away from the commotion a little bit, and I had seen Nicolai walk up to him. And then he came and I thought it was like a little punch towards her ribs. And until he had removed his hand, I saw the knife come out of my friend's side.
All right. Can you describe the knife?
It was no more than like 2 inches. It was very small. That's all I could see.
And just so I understand, you didn't see the knife until he removed it from her body?
Correct.
What did he do after he stabbed Rhyley?
I didn't pay too much attention to him after he did that. I was a little preoccupied and trying to grab her and remove her from the situation. I did take one last look at him. It looked like he was coming towards me, so I and walked away with Rhyley.
All right. Did you render assistance to Rhyley?
Yes, I did. I got her back to Q and Sheena and told them to take her downriver and get help. And then when I turned back around, I had seen Tony standing next to AJ, so I ran up to them and I helped Tony drag AJ to the shore. Tried to make sure that they were as okay as they could be before I went to try to go help as much as I could.
Did you see Tony get stabbed?
I did not.
Did you see that he was injured when you?
I did.
We're going to show you some still frames from the video. We're going to start at 28:59. Your Honor, I guess I'll caution, there are some graphic portions of the string I'm going to play, so just fair warning to everybody, there's people in the courtroom who want to leave or whatever.
Thank you for alerting everyone to that fact. All right, Janelle, I'm showing you still frame 28:59 from the video. Who's the woman up in the upper left corner with the blue and pink swimsuit?
That is Rhyley Mattison.
All right, in this picture, is she bleeding yet?
No, it does not appear to be so.
And
No.
who's the person in the middle?
Nicolai?
Stop. All right, we're showing you photo 28:59. Who's the woman in the black swimsuit up in the upper right corner?
That is me.
Is that where you were standing when this all occurred?
Yes.
Pardon me, Judge, it was 28:71. In this frame, is Rhyley off to your right
Yes, she is.
behind Mr. Miu?
Yes.
All right. At the time that Mr. Miu stabbed Rhyley, had she done anything to him in this context?
From what I remember seeing, no, I would have sworn that she did not touch him, but after seeing the footage, I saw that she did.
Well, I'm talking about
Oh.
this portion of the,
I would not be able to pinpoint if that was before or after she was,
all right. We're going to continue to play the stills here.
okay.
All right, we're going to scroll forward here. Stop. Showing you 29:26. Is that you still in the frame?
Yes, sir.
Are you looking at Mr. Miu?
I believe so. It looks like I am, yes.
Did you notice anything in his right hand?
At that time, no, I did not.
You see his right hand? Did you see his right hand moving out like?
I did. I did.
Sustained.
What's shown in the picture? Did you see that happen as far as Mr. Miu's hand?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What you see in this still, is that what you saw in the river at this point in time
Oh, yes,
with regard to Mr. Miu's body?
yes.
Scroll forward. Stop. We're showing still 29:47. At this point, is Rhyley back in the frame?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, this nowadays, what does she look like? Is she injured?
Yes. She just got stabbed.
All right, and that's my question. Is this the point in the video where you saw Mr. Miu stab Rhyley Mattison?
Yes.
And you're standing how far away?
What would that be? About 4 or 5 feet?
All right, and as you watched the stills go through, we'll strike that. Is Rhyley facing away from him?
Yes, she is.
Prior to Rhyley being stabbed at this point in time, was she laying any hands on him?
That I remembered had seen, no, I did not.
You had testified that at one point you do remember seeing you testified that when you reviewed the video, you saw at one point Rhyley touching Mr. Miu?
I did.
Was it at that point or at some earlier point?
It was earlier.
After, we'll strike that, you've answered that. We're going to continue to scroll through from where we stopped. And we're stopped at 3024. Did you watch that string of frames?
I did.
Did you see yourself in that string?
I did.
What were you doing?
Judge, can we approach for 2 seconds?
Yes. Let's continue. Excuse me, let's continue.
Did that string of frames show what you did after she was stabbed?
Yeah, you can briefly see me grab her arm and try to get her out.
All right. After this all happened, did you call for help?
It was after I had turned and told Rhyley to go to Q and to Sheena. After I had turned around and saw AJ, I ran up to him and I was helping kind of hold him together. And I had looked at Gabby, Kay, and I had yelled 3 times to call the police. I did not have a phone on me that day.
All right. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Thomasson?
Ms. Duxbury, in terms of, you watched the video in preparation for your testimony?
Correct.
Okay. What I'm gonna ask is that you try your best to testify from your memory.
Understood.
Okay. And do you recall, so I guess I'll ask it this way. Initially, you said that you were kind of laying in your tube with your head back, just kind of relaxing, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you provided a statement to the police on the 31st of July 2022, right?
I believe it was, I provided 2 of them and I thought they were the same day, the 30th, but I did provide a statement, correct?
Okay. And do you recall initially when you're sitting on the tubes, you're near Quentin Carlson, is that true? When you're on when you guys are all kind of floating down the tubes?
I honestly don't remember who all I was really sitting next to. I remember I was sitting next to Rhyley and my husband at the time, but I really don't remember who I was like right next to.
I guess my point is Quentin Carlson's in your group.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay. Do you recall him asking Dante and Anthony to go over to make sure that Mr. Miu's not going to get beat up?
I do not.
Your first recollection is, if this is fair, is Rhyley saying, let's check it out.
Yes, yes.
Right. And you tell police on the 31st that your first recollection is Dante running up to the suspect and standing between him and the other people, right?
Correct.
Is that your memory today?
Yes.
Okay, so Dante, your memory is Dante's the first one out up to the group of other tubers, right?
Yes.
Right. And then you believe, based on your statement, that you, Mattison, and Rhyley then follow Dante.
Yes. Yes, I wasn't too familiar with Madison at the time. I had only met her maybe like twice.
Okay, but my point
Yes.
is, your recollection is Dante goes up first, then the three of you follow him, right?
Yes.
And I think you hear somebody yell for Anthony Carlson to come up as well, right?
Yes, there were several people that were yelling for Tony to get up there.
All right. And the goal, according to your statement, was to build a wall, right?
Correct.
You have no idea what's happening, do you?
Not a clue.
And you say that Dante runs up to Mr. Miu. Is that true?
Correct.
To your knowledge, does he have any information as to what's happening?
No.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
And you're going to build a wall without having any information as to what's happening in that situation, right?
Correct.
And you don't hear anybody yelling anything prior to you going up to build that wall, right?
I could hear the commotion, but I could not make out distinct words.
Okay. And you don't know if Mr. Miu's with any other group, do you?
I do not.
Okay. You see him alone though, right?
What appeared to be alone, correct.
Okay. And you say that today you say Maddie goes up and is yelling at him, right?
Correct.
And is that what you remember telling the police?
I guess I honestly don't know if I had told them that or not.
You go up to build a wall. Why?
Because there was a very clear confrontation between the group of children and then Nicolai, so at least to divide the conflict was at least my idea.
So you believed at that point there was a confrontation that was taking place, is that right?
Correct.
And you hear Maddie yelling at him, is that right?
I do. Yes.
And you hear she's swearing at him, true?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in your statement, you initially said that Maddie went up there to quote, try to mellow things out. You recall that?
I do not remember using those choice of words, but
If I told you that your interview with investigator Schultz is recorded, and on that interview, those are the words that you used, do you have any reason to dispute that?
oh, no.
Okay. So when you say, or when you told investigator Schultz that Maddie went up there to try to mellow things out, is that true?
I had to have said that. That is true, yes.
I understand that you said that. Do you believe that's what she was doing, was mellowing things out?
No.
She was yelling at him, swearing at him, right?
Correct.
Okay. And do you recall her pointing at him to go down river?
I recall her pointing beyond him, but yes, she was pointing and gesturing.
And yelling go,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So you took that, if this is fair, as her telling him where she's pointing, go that way, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you say that you believe there's a confrontation that's going on, right?
Correct.
Do you recall after Maddie, well, let me ask you this. Do you see Mr. Miu attempting to speak to Maddie about what's happening?
I do not. Like I said, I really couldn't see much. I am vertically challenged and I couldn't see past people's heads and shoulders even, so.
Tell me about that for a minute. I missed the first, your what challenge?
I'm vertically challenged. I'm short. I couldn't see everything.
Right.
Sorry.
So your height, or lack thereof, has it makes it sometimes difficult for you to see things.
Yeah, I couldn't see past people's shoulders or heads or anything. No.
Okay. And do you see these other tubers, the people that you are saying he's in a confrontation with, Mr. Miu? Do you see them after Maddie's there and you guys are there? Do you see them kind of surround him and start to taunt him?
I'll check your under the term surrounds.
I did not notice that. I did definitely notice like it did seem to be a little taunting, yes.
Okay, and the taunting was going on by the other tubers in part, right?
Correct.
But you don't have a recollection specifically of what they were doing in terms of the taunting?
No, I heard some people still yelling. It sounded like some laughter, but it wasn't necessarily distinct. And that was by the time that we had actually gotten up there.
Right, so when you get up there, then is when you can probably see a little better and hear a little better, right?
Correct.
Okay. So in terms of the confrontation, you agree that it is this group of 6 plus your group, yes? Together,
Correct. Yes.
and Mr. Miu's alone, right?
Yes.
Okay. So at that point, is it fair to say that you have some concern because Mr. Miu's alone that this confrontation can go poorly for him, right?
Oh, I still had concern it could go poorly for either party. But I see what you're saying, and yes, he was a part of the concern.
Okay. And to be fair, part of that is based on him being by himself, true?
Correct.
Would you agree that Maddie was in Mr. Miu's face? You'd agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Okay. She was in his, as it's been described, in his personal space, true?
True.
And tell me if this is fair. When you see Mr. Miu make contact with Maddie, I know that you had said that it was, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you remember specifically, you said he dropped a shoulder, right? You mentioned that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see specifically what happens?
I could not see, but putting puzzle pieces together, yes, I could tell that he had punched her.
Okay, so you didn't see the punch, you just believe based on reasoning that that's what happened.
Yes.
Okay. When that happens, she's standing in front of him, right?
Correct.
She's standing in his face, correct?
Correct.
She's in his personal space, correct?
Correct.
And do you remember Rhyley standing next to her?
I honestly do not. I thought I was like right behind her the entire time.
When you say her, I'm sorry.
Rhyley. I thought Rhyley was like right in front of me the entire time. I do not remember Rhyley being so close.
Okay, but having watched the video now, you know that your recollection from your memory isn't correct.
That is correct.
All right. So now do you know that Rhyley's standing next to Mattison?
I do.
Okay. And you don't see this punch in particular or this movement, but you see you see Mattison do what?
She had, again, her back was facing me, and then all of a sudden I saw her turn, but it was leading with her head. So her head had turned, so I saw the right side of her face. And then her body had followed, and then she had stumbled down to her knees. And she got back up and then started running. I believe it was her and Gabby that started running back to Q and Sheena.
You described Mr. Miu in your original statement to investigator Schultz as, you described him as standing over her. Remember that?
Yeah,
After you say she goes down.
yeah. I would still stand by that.
So you would say that you see her head move,
Mhm.
she goes down to a knee or goes down.
Mhm.
He then, does he move toward her?
Oh, I wouldn't say he necessarily moves towards her, but he definitely just stood above her.
And how,
Oh, I was just gonna say, she didn't get like launched. She literally just kind of did like a little 180 and fell down right where she was standing.
okay. She's, if you remember, I'll ask it to you two ways. From your memory, do you remember that she was holding a drink at the time?
I know that she was holding stuff, but I could not tell you what she was holding.
Okay. And how long, in terms of time, passes from, no, this is your memory. How long passes from the time that you see her make her movement and go down until Dante gets involved?
Oh, that was like a second.
Okay. And do you agree on you've watched the video?
Yes.
Do you agree on the video, it doesn't show Madison falling down or going down, right?
No, I would agree with that.
And you'd agree that what you've seen on the video, she doesn't drop her drink either, right?
No, I would agree with that.
Okay, and she's holding, I don't know if you remember this, she's holding not only a drink, but a vape in her hand as well, right?
Okay.
Okay. Those things don't fall, right?
Correct.
Even though she falls, they stay in her hand, right?
Correct.
And her cell phone, do you remember her cell phone is like up in her swimsuit?
But I don't recall, but not surprised.
Okay. And do you remember on the video, her cell phone doesn't fall either, right?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Now, do you ever see her being Madison? Do you ever see her stop and pick up her sunglasses?
No, that wasn't anything that I paid. No.
Okay. Prior to Madison getting in Mr. Miu's personal space and in his face, you don't see him being aggressive, true?
True.
Okay. He doesn't verbally say anything that you would describe as being aggressive, right?
Correct. He said nothing at all that I heard.
Okay. And you don't see him doing anything physically that you would consider to be aggressive either, right?
Aggressive, no, but the way he was standing there and just, it was a very expressionless, hollow, almost like a demonic look in his face. Like I don't know how else to describe it other than his eyes did not look human. Very daunting.
You would agree at that point there's approximately 13 people around him, yes?
It had to have been somewhere around that number, correct?
Okay. Based on what you saw, now I know that you said you didn't see Mr. Miu being aggressive or saying anything. Based on what you said he looked like, were you fearful of him?
Yes.
Okay. You then say that you see Dante strike Mr. Miu, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you believe from your memory that Mr. Miu goes down, yes?
Yes.
And then Mr. Miu stands back up.
Correct.
And then you believe that Mr. Miu punches Dante.
Correct.
Okay. Then you believe that Dante punched Mr. Miu again and knocked him into the water again, right?
Correct.
You know that's not true after watching the video, right?
I do.
So can I ask you this? You had mentioned that you were fearful based on the way that Mr. Miu looked, right?
Correct.
And you would agree that at that point, you've already said there's 13 people around Mr. Miu, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're in his face, some of them.
I would.
Objection, Your Honor, is characterization of the evidence.
Again, members of the jury, you are the judges of the facts. Statements of the lawyers are not evidence. Rely on what the witness says, not what the lawyers say.
You've testified that at least Madison Cohen's in his face.
Correct.
She has people next to her and around her, right?
Correct.
They're clearly supporting her, right?
Correct.
He's alone,
Objection has been answered.
Overruled.
yes?
Correct.
She's yelled at him, swore at him, and she's, as you say, she's screaming at him, right?
Correct.
Okay. Reasonable that he's in fear as well, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you see AJ Martin come in after Mr. Miu is punched in the face? Do you see him shove Mr. Miu from behind?
I did not.
You didn't see that?
I did not see it.
Okay. You know after watching the video that's what happened though, right?
I do know that, yes.
And you did or did not see when Mr. Martin, I know you said you didn't see Mr. Martin shove him. Did you see Dante come up and strike Mr. Miu in the face for the third time? Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Okay. But you know from the video that's true, right?
Yes.
And you were asked by investigator Schultz, when the suspect was stabbing people, what were those people doing? And your answer was, nobody was touching him, right?
I believe that was my answer, correct, yes.
Okay, and you know that's not true though, right?
Obviously, yes.
You know from watching the video that everyone that we can see on the video that's injured had put their hands on Mr. Miu, right?
Objection, Your Honor. It's characterization.
I'll say the same thing. Jury, you are the judges of the facts. What the lawyers say is not evidence. Listen to the witnesses.
You know that from watching the video, right?
I know that Tony did not touch him in a violent way, but that is correct.
Okay, and you didn't put your hands on him at all, right?
I did not.
And nothing happened to you, right?
The way he was looking at me and the way he was starting to step towards me, it is all speculation, but I was 1,000% sure I was going to get a knife in the back as I was running away with Rhyley.
Did you get a knife?
Obviously did not.
Did he touch you in any way?
No, he did not.
And you also agree that you told police that your group had formed kind of a semicircle around him. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and you stand by that. True?
I do.
Okay. Did you, at the time you gave your statement to police, did you view Madison Cohen as kind of the peacekeeper here?
No.
Okay, you mentioned that you said that she was there to mellow things out. Right?
Again, that was just a very poor choice of words. But yeah, I remember saying that. Sorry.
Because it was actually the opposite, right?
Objection, Your Honor, this is material we covered, asked and answered.
Sustained. Let's move on.
Do you have a specific recollection of seeing Rhyley get stabbed from your memory?
I remember seeing the knife exiting her body.
Okay. Do you have a specific recollection of what Rhyley was doing prior to that?
Prior to that? I'm sorry, do you mean like moments before the knife
Correct.
entered? She was just standing there from my recollection.
You don't have a recollection of her moving toward Mr. Miu?
No, I do not.
Okay. You do or do not have a recollection of seeing Isaac Schuman?
I do not know.
So, and when you say you don't have a recollection of seeing the interaction that he had with Mr. Miu?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Duxbury.
Mr. Smestad? Just one second. It's okay. Mr. Smestad, do you have any more questions?
I don't, Your Honor.
All right, now, Ms. Duxbury, you may
Thank you.
get up and leave. Please see the witness coordinator in the back. She'll tell you where to go next. Who is the next witness?
Call Andrea Baldazo.
Is it Baldazo with a B?
Baldazo.
Ms. Baldazo, would you please come forward? Keep coming. There you go. Please face the clerk, raise your right hand. She will administer the oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Please have a seat in the witness chair. Yes. Mr. Smestad,
Will you please state your name and spell your last name?
Andrea Baldazo, Baldazo.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a registered nurse.
Where do you work?
Fairview Lakes in Wyoming,
What town do you live in?
Forest Lake.
Do you recall the day of July 30th of 2022?
Yes, I do.
What were you doing on that day?
My family and I had gone boating tubing on the Apple River.
Do you recall where you put in on the Apple River?
Where we put in,
Yeah,
the river's edge is where we parked and we got in there.
All right. Who were you with, generally speaking?
My husband, my 3 children that are teenagers, a group of friends with us, and my husband's cousin.
Were you folks having drinks?
Yes,
Did you specifically have some alcoholic drinks?
I did.
Do you remember how many?
I think it was 2 to 3. I had 2 White Claws, and I think I had a sip of Shelley's Cayman Jacks.
Do you think you were impaired?
Buzzed, not drunk.
All right. At some point, as you're floating down the river, did you become involved with an incident where some folks have been injured?
Yes.
Tell us how that started.
We had grouped our tubes together. We had tied them together, and so I ended up kind of on the back end, and I was floating down the river backwards. And my husband said, those people are having a good time or they're having quite a party, something along those lines. And I turned my head to the right and I could see one person laying down on the river's edge and another person further down, and people were, what I had thought was laughing, but turned into screaming, yelling.
What did you do when you saw?
I knew somebody was hurt, and so I jumped off the raft and ran across the, well, it was so slow, I was trying to run fast, but the water was too thick. So then I ended up kind of falling forward and army crawling across to him. And when I got up, there was a blonde boy.
Did you know who that boy was? Did you find out later who it was?
Yes,
Who was it?
Isaac.
Did you approach Isaac?
I did.
Where was he located by the time you got to him?
He was on the bank, kind of with his right arm in the lake, or in the, whatever, the river. There was a kind of a copse of trees right before where he was laying, and kind of up into the edge there. And then a little further down, there was somebody else sitting, I thought was sitting.
By somebody else, do you mean somebody else?
Like another, somebody hurt.
Did you focus your attention on Isaac?
I did.
When you arrived to where Isaac was, did your nurse training kick in?
Yes, so he was lying on his back. His eyes were open but not blinking. He was not breathing. So I started chest compressions right away and continued that for a long time.
Did you make a primary assessment of his wound?
I saw that there was a large cut. At first I thought he had been impaled on the set of roots and branches that were hanging down just prior to that. But then I looked and it was a slash mark, not an impale thing. It was a long and thin and clean cut.
Where was it located on his body?
On his left chest, upper chest, kind of his ribs.
All right. So what?
I asked, I was doing compressions and people were screaming and it was making me lose count. So I think I yelled out to somebody, shut up or stop screaming, so that I could count. There were other people around. I asked for somebody to get me anything that I could use as a chest seal, Ziploc bag, anything to put over that wound. I didn't want any water or anything getting in there, but I looked down at Isaac and there was some vomit coming from his mouth at some point. So I asked to turn the kid up front to turn his head, which he did. And the kid splashed some water, which got in his eyes. And I said, don't splash water in his face anymore. And it just continued forever. It felt like forever that we did compressions. I kept asking, where's the rig? Why isn't it here yet?
By rig, do you mean, what do you mean?
Ambulance.
Do you have an idea now, as you sit here, how long you performed chest compressions on Isaac?
I said 45 minutes because I think I thought that's what it was, but somebody corrected me later that it wasn't. It felt like forever. I mean, we were going and going round after round. Other people were performing compressions. We were singing Baby Shark to keep people on the rhythm.
Or you were taking turns giving him?
Yeah. And at some point, when somebody had taken over a round of compressions for me, I got up and went to check, walked just a few steps further down the river to check the other victim, but it looked to me like they were up and speaking and conscious, so I went back to Isaac because he was not.
Do you have experience dealing with trauma cases?
Yes.
At the hospital where you work, are you involved in trauma care?
I'm primarily a med-surg nurse, but I do float down to the emergency room and involved in code situations.
What's a med-surg nurse?
Med-surg, it's a medical surgical floor, so typically we have post-op patients, anybody from pancreatitis to just a little bit of everything.
Eventually, did law enforcement and EMTs arrive?
Yes,
Were you still with Isaac at that point?
yes,
Was he taken off the river?
yes.
Did you see any of the altercation prior to you giving care to Isaac?
I did not.
Have you had any other involvement in this case?
No.
Well, So when you testified earlier that your husband had alerted you that he thought there was some kind of party going on,
Mhm.
you know whereabouts in the river you were?
So where Isaac was laying just a little bit further, I guess if I'm looking at Isaac laying on the ground and the second person was a little further down, just a little further up where those roots and branches that I thought somebody had gotten stuck on.
Were you near the bend in the river in that location, if you remember?
I don't remember a bend. I mean, the whole thing is windy, so, yeah, I mean, I could
Understood.
show you on a map or a picture.
We do have a blow up of the map. If I can get that exhibit. Like my brother's sword is.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit 25A. I want to be able to do this so that the jury can see too. Do you recognize this?
Yes,
Can you tell us what it is?
the Apple River.
You indicated that you started at River's Edge?
Correct. So we came down this way. I would have been right here. We came around.
Yeah, let me do just, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So we were floating this way, and I guess, yes, then we must have just come around a little bend because I'm guessing that copse of trees was right here. And so I was floating backwards and it was on my right.
And you pointed at the area on the exhibit that says incident location?
Correct.
So your testimony, you were coming
Oh,
around.
I'm sorry. Yes, this is the river. That's the highway. So,
Coming around that bend?
yeah, this bend. I'm sorry.
Okay, if this is the end down here and this is the start, would you have been going this way? I know it's hard to see.
Yeah, I guess I just don't know which way the river goes. Oh, so, yes, so this is the start and this is the exit?
Right.
Yep, so we would have come down this way and I would have been going backwards here and it was on my right.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Trofficy?
I just have a couple questions for you, ma'am. I think you said that you were tubing with your family, is that right?
Correct,
Okay, and your husband was with you, is that right?
correct.
And your group, or you and your husband and your children, your husband brought a knife, didn't he?
Correct.
Okay, and can you tell us what was that for?
We bring paracord with us when we go tubing. If we don't bring paracord, we'll use the twine at the river's edge and we pull our tubes together to carry our coolers, our food, just kind of generally keep the group together because it's a bigger group when we go.
Okay,
And he uses the knife to cut that paracord. Apologies.
that's okay. And do you remember, or can you describe the knife that your husband had?
It was a flip one where you flip it open and it locks into place and then you move the lever and it relocks.
Okay.
And it had a clip on it.
If I said to you, it's kind of like a pocket knife that is closed, and then you can take the blade and you can open and lock the blade. Is that fair?
Correct.
And only answer this if you know. Your husband followed you after you jumped off your tube to run over to see what was going on or to render aid. Is that right?
That's correct.
Do you know whether or not your husband pulled out his knife?
I don't.
Have you talked to your husband about the case or about the incident?
Previous, but we were asked not to speak about it later, so we didn't. But we've talked about it off and on over the years prior to this.
Okay. Do you know that your husband's knife was lost?
I did after. I found out after that it had been lost.
Do you know, well, I'll ask it to you this way. His knife was lost near the incident, right?
I don't know at what point it was lost.
Okay.
he is, I don't know.
Okay. Do you, your statement talks about, that your husband picked up a snorkel. Did you see that?
I saw him pick it up, yes.
When he picked it up, did you see a confrontation happen then?
When he picked it up,
Or shortly thereafter? When I say confrontation, did you see people starting to yell or confront your husband about picking that up?
no.
No? Okay. Did you see your husband give that snorkel to the police?
No, he picked it up out of the river after Isaac was going. And it was just like a clear white plastic mask. And then I don't know what he did with it afterwards. I don't know if he dropped it. I don't know if he gave it to somebody.
That's all I have. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Smestad, do you have any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Baldazo.
Thank you.
You are excused. The witness coordinator in the back will tell you where to go next. Anybody need a break?
Yes.
All right, so we'll just take a short 5-minute restroom break. Let's come back at about 9:05. All rise for the jury. We are back in session. 14 jurors are present. The attorneys are present along with Mr. Miu. We are ready to continue. Mr. Anderson, who is the next witness?
State calls Terry Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, please face the clerk. Raise your right hand. She will administer the oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Please have a seat in the witness chair. Mr. Anderson,
Can you state your first and last name for the record?
Terry Anderson,
And is Anderson EN or ON?
Eon.
And how are you employed?
I'm the emergency communications manager for the county
How long have you been in that role?
since 2007.
And what are your duties?
Managing the 911 center, making sure all the equipment operates, making sure it's staffed, and control, I shouldn't say controlling, but managing the audio logging of all the radio and phone audio.
So you're also the custodian of records there?
Correct.
And are 911 calls, dispatch logs, are those maintained in the regular course of dispatch?
Yes, they are.
Were you asked to retrieve 911 calls in the dispatch log for this case?
I was.
Did you provide those to the sheriff's office?
I did.
And may I approach?
yes.
Handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 40. You identify what that is?
This is the log from the 911 system of all the phone calls that came in during that time frame.
And what was the time of the first 911 call?
15:47, which is 3:47 PM.
So is that accurate, what I wrote up there?
It is.
And Exhibit 40, does that have some handwriting on it?
Yes,
Is that your handwriting?
it is.
What are you identifying or indicating, or what's the handwriting indicate?
That is the referencing the records management system, reversing that phone number as to the name of the person that's related to that phone number.
And so who was the name of the person for that first 911 call?
Gabriella.
Kaz-
Yes,
Kazray Nazimpour?
yes.
And can you go through the names of the other callers that, or owners of the numbers that you identified that called into 911?
Ashley Straker, Emma Alexander, Madison Cohen, Ashley Straker, Titania Lava, Madison Cohen, Ashley Straker, Titania, Eric Williams, and I believe the last one was a subject, Takano from Minneapolis PD.
And it looks like Eric Williams called a couple times.
Correct.
So I want to direct you to a specific call. The call from Tatiana Leva at 15:48:52. You see that one?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 63. Is that phone call, 911 call from Tatiana on that flash drive?
It is.
Have you listened to that?
I have.
Did you initial that flash drive when you listened to it?
I did.
I move to admit Exhibit 63.
Any objection? 63 is received.
May I approach?
Yes.
Anyone that's been marked as Exhibit 14. Are the rest of the 911 calls, or are all the 911 calls on that exhibit?
Yes,
Does it also have digital versions of the dispatch log?
it does.
So I'm gonna move to admit Exhibit 14.
Any objection? All right, 14 is received.
Also Exhibit 40.
Any objection to 40?
40 on the, oh, no, no objection.
We have to approach actually quick.
Yes. So I'm sorry, we're on 40, no objection, correct?
Correct.
40 received.
Judge, I'd move to publish a portion of Exhibit 63.
Yes.
Judge, timestamp is 1:20.
Pulled the knife. Okay, so we're on the river. Do you know where the man with the knife is?
And I had a fucking knife.
And we are here, and somebody attacked one of our friends.
Do you know where the man with the knife is? Took my knife.
Okay,
Knife is their own.
everybody calm down.
Pause at 1:38. Judge, now I'm just gonna play the whole thing from the start.
Yeah, help! Help! What the hell? ¡Mira la niña! ¡Tú ves la niña!
¿Quién se lo hace? ¿Quién se lo hace?
¡Tiene sangre!
Oye, ¿qué es eso?
¡Mira, estoy aquí!
Nicolae County 911, what's the address of your emergency? Hello, Nicolae County 911.
Oye, habla español, estamos en el río, aquí. Hasta el río y muchos niños están heridos con cuchillos. No sé, eso está feo aquí, en Wisconsin, hasta el río. Oye, dile a la policía, dile.
Ma'am, are you on the water?
I don't know what happened.
You need to talk to me.
Yeah, but calm down. Stop it, go wrong.
Somebody's got to talk to me.
We're at River's Edge.
Was somebody stabbed? Is that what you're calling about?
I don't know what happened. Somebody pulled a knife.
Okay.
We're on the river.
Do you know where the man with the knife is? And I had a fucking knife.
And we are here, and somebody attacked one of our friends.
Do you know where the man with the knife is?
took my knife.
Okay.
Knife is their own.
Everybody calm down. We're fine. We're fine.
Can somebody tell me where the man with the knife is, please?
Okay, so we're on River's Edge, on the river. Someone pulled a knife on our friend. So our friend has a knife because we used it for the rope. Someone take I don't even know. I have no idea what happened.
Okay, do you know where the person with the knife went? The person that stabbed the other individual, do you know where they went?
Oh my God, I have no idea what's going on.
Okay, we have people help. Started your way, okay? Thank you.
Okay.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Mr. Shrafazi?
Just a couple questions, Mr. Anderson. So, in the job, tell me if this is fair. The job of the people that you kind of supervise is to try to get as much information as possible about kind of what's happening.
Correct,
Is that right?
correct.
Okay. And is it fair to say that in your experience, sometimes you get calls like this where people are just yelling and screaming, and it's difficult for the dispatcher to really get any information about what's going on? Is that fair?
That is fair.
Okay. And can be for various reasons that's happening, but in this particular case, is it, I don't know if you can answer this question. At one point, the dispatcher says, we've got people coming, and then I think says that and then kind of disconnects the call. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. And is that, are they, if you know, are they trained to try to keep people on the phone, to disconnect calls, depending on the circumstances? How does that normally work?
Depends on the circumstances. In this case, there was numerous 911 calls, so the dispatchers were triaging, trying to gather the most pertinent information, the best information they could. And if they weren't getting any more information, they had to move on to the next call because there were other 911 lines ringing.
Sure. And it sounds like, at least from the information we have, there had been previous 911 calls about this incident. Is that fair?
That is fair.
So, thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Nothing else, Judge.
All right. Thank you. You may step down.
Can we approach again?
Yes. Members of the jury, we are going to take a short little recess. The good news is we're running ahead of schedule. So the next witness hasn't arrived yet. She'll be here at 9:30. So we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and then pick up the trial. Please take the jury out.
All rise for the jury.
Please be seated. While we are outside the presence of the jury, Mr. Anderson, you've advanced your schedule of witnesses?
Yes, so we've actually, a lot of witnesses that we had scheduled for Monday, we're having them come in now. Friday, honestly, I don't think we'll take the full day with the Spanish speakers either, so we'll call in more net witnesses from next week for Friday. And I think there's a good chance we'll rest on Monday, maybe Tuesday, but that's what it's looking like right now.
Okay. And is that going to interfere with the defense schedule if you have one?
No, the one, I don't know exactly how many of the Spanish-speaking witnesses the state intends to call. Depending upon who they call, we may call the other Spanish-speaking witnesses. I know that there's an interpreter on Friday. I know that it's unusual to take witnesses out of order, but if there's an interpreter here, it would be our request, and we can discuss it maybe more over lunch, or it would be our request that the defense be allowed to call those other Spanish-speaking witnesses on that day out of order, or we ask the court to help us to make arrangements for an interpreter. know, we talked about this before, and before we were under the
interpreter service for the entire day still. So please just verify that with the clerk of court, make sure that we have proper coverage, and then talk with one another about these witnesses, because it makes more sense to get them all done the same day. I don't know if we have an interpreter available to come back the following week. So just talk amongst yourselves. If you've got an issue, let me know, and then I can hopefully provide a solution. Okay. All right, take a short little break and we'll get started once the witness arrives.
Two hearts inside your eyes, can you feel the rush? Closing the gap. Two hearts inside your eyes, can you feel the rush? Closing the gap we made, oh how I'm
John Ferell.
Officer Ferell, please come forward. Please face the clerk, raise your right hand. She will administer the oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Please have a seat in the witness chair. Mr. Anderson,
Can you please state your first and last name and spell your last name?
John Ferrell, Farrell.
And how are you employed?
I'm a sergeant with the Somerset Police Department
How long have you worked in law enforcement?
since June of 2013.
And do you also have training in first aid or emergency response?
I do. I'm currently licensed as an emergency medical responder.
Were you working on July 30th of 2022?
Yes,
On that day, were you dispatched to the Apple River stabbing?
I was.
What was if you recall, what was the initial information from dispatch?
Initial information was people stabbed on the river, possibly one dead. I believe it was 3 victims as we were responding to the scene.
And did you head immediately to the scene, or did you have to go somewhere else first?
I had to grab a set of bolt cutters out of the PD garage, and then I went to the Sunrise Camp entry and had to cut the lock to get in, and then I went directly to the scene.
And is that the Sunrise Camp entry, is that private property?
Yeah.
And was that the best access to get to where the incident was reported to have happened?
Yeah, there's a road that you can get on off Sunrise Drive in Somerset, and then it'll take you back to where the scene was.
And is that a campground that's in operation or no?
No,
And the owner is given permission for law enforcement to use that when needed?
yeah, we had spoken to him in the past about it.
Were you one of the first officers to arrive on scene?
I was.
And how many officers, if you recall, arrived there originally?
I don't recall a specific number. I know as I was approaching the scene, I saw a Deputy Durand come down from the highway, and then Officer Stumo was behind me. And there was also another deputy that was behind me that was at the gate when I opened it.
And so can you kind of describe what the situation was when you got to the river?
Yeah, there was, I was being flagged down initially by people at the river bank. As I approached them, I saw one guy come out that was holding his side. It was later determined that he had a stab wound on his side that was being directed down into the river, where a female was sitting in a tube while bystanders were holding pressure on her left side. When I got down into the river, when I looked at her, I had noticed that I could see what I believe to be her bodily organs outside of her body. Deputy Durand and I worked with bystanders to get her out of the river. During that time, we were trying to determine what was going on, where's the suspect. There's a lot of information coming in at once, a lot of people in one spot. We were able to get her out. The other person that was there that was stabbed came up as well. I retrieved the medical kit from my squad car, provided some medical equipment to the other officers before I went into the river, and then headed upriver to where the other victims were.
And while you were at the river, when you initially got there, were there still groups of tubers going down the river?
Yeah.
And was there a good crowd of tubers around also?
Yeah.
Did you know who was witnesses, who were just bystanders, or was it kind of just people everywhere?
There was people everywhere. I didn't know who was who. I mean, it was obvious to me who was injured, but other than that, I didn't know who witnesses were, suspects were, what anyone else's involvement was.
Did you have a body cam on?
I did.
Does your body camera indicate the date and the time of the footage on the bottom of the screen?
It does.
Permission to approach?
Yes.
And what's been marked as Exhibit 22, what's that labeled as?
Ferell BC video?
BC body cam?
Yes.
Judge, I move to publish portions of it. I'm going to skip around a little bit to not show some of the up-close graphic parts.
So first, any objection to Exhibit 22? All right, received. Go ahead and publish the portions you wish to show. Tell us when you're ready.
Oh, and I'll ask another question. If we watch the first minute, would it just be you driving there?
Yeah.
We're going to start at 57 seconds, Judge. We're going to play to about the 5-minute mark for this first segment.
I got a cutter!
J19 dispatch Q, call the on-call.
Cut the wrong side, of course. There. Slide. Good enough?
When you get an opportunity, if you want to have fire rescue needs, let them know.
Meet you up there.
End up with potential victims on the river, whatever they do to get access to that. Idiot 15 is good. Idiot 15 good. 8100 will be working on getting the investigators out. 10 receipt handles ready to. I wasn't aware of that when I talked to him. That's wrong. Idiot 32 trip. Dispatch Sunrise access is open. Sunrise access? Correct. Open down to the river. That's where 50.
4502 dispatch should be on scene, just underneath, getting flagged down by people.
So we're paused at 2:53. Can you see the timestamp on the bottom there?
I can.
What's the time?
15:54:45, which was 3:54 p.m.
The time of law enforcement's first arrival on scene?
Yeah, yes.
Can we have a screen again, please? And 15:54 would be 3:54 PM.
Yes.
Is that right, what I wrote up there?
Yes.
We're gonna keep playing until about the 5-minute mark.
They're all down where? We have to take the river down.
We got someone who can't move.
Yep, come on up.
We got
Come on
someone
up.
who
You
can't
come up
move.
here.
Go help him. Please.
Where'd the suspect go?
I don't know.
No, but we got. She got stabbed. Her right there. She got stabbed.
Okay.
And there's two down there yet too. It's shallow water. So you
Yep,
you can
yep,
step in
we're
there.
going,
It's
we're
shallow.
going.
It's shallow. Y'all can step in there.
Just, we got one stabbing already up here.
The one kid that walked by you missed too.
Yep, we saw that. Chase, you got a knife on you?
I can't breathe.
Gotta go one more cut here.
I have to hold this pressure. Yep.
Keep holding pressure.
I know you do. I know you don't.
You're doing good. Keep holding pressure. Okay.
Helicopter is overhead in Fulton. You need to pick her up. I can't.
I think we can just pick her up. She's got a dissertation here.
If you could start a helicopter,
Get this underneath the tube and lift up.
Under the ocean.
She got guts.
We stopped at 4:52. And did you end up assisting to carry Rhyley out of the river?
Yes.
Where'd you bring her?
Just up to the paved road there by the squad cars.
What'd you do after that?
I retrieved the medical equipment from my squad car and provided it to the officers who were tending to her, the other subject that was stabbed that was sitting next to my squad car, and then I headed into the river.
And we're gonna play from about the 8-minute mark. 7:59 is the timestamp.
We have to get your butt up a little bit here. Yep, yep. Way up. Yep, we're going. Okay. Ready, Chase?
And the guy is still walking up the river.
The suspect?
Yes, he still had a knife out. He was still stabbing people.
4502 dispatch. We just received information. Suspect still has the knife and heading upriver on foot. 4502 dispatch, I'm just getting up to 06. It does appear that EMS is clear to get up here. Just make sure they know the suspect's still large. We got officers up there at our entry point. If we can get a boat, that'd be great. Yep. Okay, all right. Seals. If you got if you need a seal.
Yeah, I need, he's got their own. It's
Yep.
everywhere.
Okay, yep.
We stopped at 10:50. That first victim you stopped at and dropped off a chest seal.
Yeah.
Did you later learn that was AJ, or don't you know?
I don't know.
Okay. You know who that is up in the background there?
Which?
On the bank to the right, that kind of obstructed by other people, but.
The person that's being tended to medically and CPR is in progress. I don't remember his exact name, but I believe his first name was Isaac.
Okay. What did you do after this point?
I went up to the group that was doing CPR on him, and then assisted with that.
Do you eventually assist getting people off the river?
Yeah, when paramedics arrived, they came up the river, then I assisted in getting him out of there.
How did you get Isaac off the river when you had to wade up like that?
Yeah, a backboard was placed on inner tubes and then floated down the river.
I don't have anything else.
Mr. Thomasson?
Just briefly, Sergeant. So it appears initially you're in kind of responder, trying to assist mode. Is that fair?
Yes.
And at that point, I'm assuming you're training. You're not, I don't want to say you're not interested, but you're focused on kind of what's going on, and the investigation can kind of happen at a later point.
That's correct. That's correct.
At some point, your report indicates that you make it to the village park. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so from what we saw there in the times, how much later or how much time passes until you make it up to village park?
Oh, I don't know the exact time. It's not immediate. It's a significant time, but I don't know the exact time.
Okay, and we heard on the tape that you're getting information as it's kind of coming in. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. When you go to Village Park, are you then starting to maybe switch over from emergency situation to kind of investigative situation? Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And you make contact at Village Park with a gentleman by the name of Eric Williams. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And does he come up to you, or do you go up to him?
I had directed him out of the crowd to come talk to me. There was a group gathered together.
Okay. So did you have some information that he might have information?
I had information that the people in the group may have information, but as to who knew what and who was where, no, I didn't have that until I started talking to him.
Okay. And he had provided you at least some brief information about kind of what was going on, right?
Yes.
Okay. And he had provided you information that he was with Mr. Miu, right?
Yeah, in the same group, yes.
And he had provided you information as to kind of what Mr. Miu was doing.
Yes.
Previously, right?
Yes.
Okay. That he was looking for a phone, right?
That's correct.
At that point, do not take this as critical. At that point, you don't have any other information as to what had actually happened. Is that fair? What I mean by that is, I know you saw people that had been injured, but how they were injured, the circumstances surrounding that, you didn't have that information, right?
Some of the witnesses on the scene had mentioned stabbing, that's what had happened. But other than that, no.
Okay. And you locate tell me if this is fair, you locate various pieces of what may be physical evidence?
Yeah.
In your mind?
Yes.
Okay. And that was a shirt and a pair of swim goggles?
Yes.
Okay. Are the goggles like you would see, are they snorkel goggles or are they goggles like a swimmer who's competing?
I don't remember exactly what they were.
Okay. After your interview with Mr. Williams, and you're walking kind of the river, is that your involvement in the case?
Yeah, that's the involvement. Yeah, I was, well, I had been given a ride back, and that's when you said, when I assisted with finding the evidence in the river, the T-shirt, the goggles. So there's that space between Village Park and where the incident actually had occurred, where I initially responded to. So I had gone from there back to that spot, and that's when I assisted in that searching where I found the T-shirt and the swim goggles.
I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So after that's done, your involvement in kind of what happened here has concluded. Is
Yeah,
that fair?
yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Anderson, anything else?
Nothing else.
All right, thank you, Sergeant. You may step down. Who is the next witness?
Chase Durand.
Two hearts inside your eyes, can you feel the rush? Closing the gap we made, oh how I miss your touch. Push through the ceiling now, we can raise it up.
For the record, please.
Chase Durand,
How do you spell your last name?
Durand.
What do you do for a living?
Patrol Sergeant with Sheriff's Office, St. Croix County.
How long have you worked in law enforcement?
About 10 years,
How long have you been a sergeant?
about 5 years, I believe.
Can you briefly describe your training to be a police officer?
Basic recruit school, 720 hours. And then attended several other FTO through the department, and then several other schools following that. SWAT school, boat patrol, several other trainings.
Do you have any EMT training?
Yes.
Was that included as part of your law enforcement training or something you did separately?
We receive a basic first responder level training in the academy, and then through our emergency response unit, we receive follow-on medical training from our tactical medics that's assigned to our unit, and have attended a 3-day trauma care training.
Were you working back on July 30th of 2022?
Yes, I was.
Did you get dispatched to the incident on the Apple River?
I did.
What information were you given in the initial call?
It was aired to us from dispatch that there have been several people stabbed on the Apple River, and dispatch said it was near the 64 bridge in Somerset Township.
Where were you located when you first got called?
I was in the Holton area,
About how far away? About how far away?
9 miles.
Did you drive over to the area where the call was coming from?
Yes, I responded emergent, and the area I'm familiar with, there's a private road underneath the bridge with no off-ramp on the highway there on 64. I parked up on top of the overpass and then went down the embankment to the river.
When you arrived, were there other officers on scene?
I first saw Officer Ferell, or Sergeant Ferell from Somerset PD.
Do you remember any other officers you saw?
Once I got upriver, when we waded to the river,
and then came across Officer Stumo at that location where the 2 victims were in the water still.
All right, so before you get into the river, did you get involved in some of the activities that were going on shore?
Yes,
The bridge?
when I first arrived and made my way down the embankment, I came across, it was hectic and there was a lot of people near the bridge. There was one male subject who was able to walk, who had observed what looked like a stab wound. And then I was directed with Sergeant Ferell to another female laying in her tube that had a wound to her left side. We used my soft stretcher with help of bystanders to evacuate her out of the water up to the road where I passed her off to another deputy arriving.
And after you did that, did you enter the river?
Yes.
At that point, had you been given any information as to who the suspect was or what they looked like?
Once I entered the water, people were yelling that it was a guy wearing scuba gear and he went back upriver.
You didn't have a physical description?
At that time, no.
Were you wearing a body camera at the time that you responded to the river?
I was. On my first arrival with the first 2 victims I came across, it wasn't recording. And then when I checked it going upriver, I had to open up, it was our old body cam system. I had to open up the phone app and activate it. It wasn't turning on with the button.
All right. So if I understand you, part of what you did isn't on your body cam?
Correct.
Would that have been the activities that you were involved in with Sergeant Ferell?
The initial response with the first 2 victims you located, and then once I entered the water to go upriver, that's when my body cam turned on.
I approach a witness, John.
Yes, you may.
Sergeant, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 43. Can you tell us what that is?
Flash drive.
And how's it labeled?
Durand evidence with 43 on the.
Does it say BC at the top?
All right. Durand BC video.
And BC stands for?
Body cam.
I'm going to ask the move for admission of 43 and ask to publish.
Any objection to 43? Exhibit 43 is received. Go ahead and play it.
Your Honor, again, I'm going to just give a warning that some of the images on this body cam are graphic, so anybody who may be concerned may want to leave.
So members of the jury, what you're about to see is difficult. It is evidence. You may consider it. Watch as much as you can. If you need to avert your eyes for a moment, you may. But I ask that you pay as close attention as you can because this is evidence in the trial. Mr. Smithson.
We're going to start at the 29-second mark. We're ready.
Yeah. Okay. What does you see where the suspect was? Yeah.
Okay. Have him hold it. He'll hold it. AJ, you hold my hand. Squeeze my hand, man. Squeeze my hand. So good, AJ. You're doing so good. So good. Squeeze my hand right now. Squeeze it. Squeeze it. Right now. Right now.
Go ahead for 19.
Do you want me to go upriver and start coming down, or I'm at the bridge right now?
You want to start looking for the suspect. I'll work on a description. I heard one person say scuba gear.
4702 dispatch. We're doing CPR. 4502 CPR.
Did you guys see what happened? Who did it?
4502 dispatch. I know you're busy.
Do you know who it is?
No, it's just some rando on the river. He looked 5'9", 5'10" Russian looking guy.
He went somewhere
Short,
over there.
dark
What was he
hair.
wearing?
Hey, see him?
Hey!
I think they just went after him. I think he's up there. You get out of there.
Get out! Get out!
Hey, where you guys going? What? We need to know what he looks like. We got a lot of cops in the area. What does he look like? Hey, we got a canine coming. We can't track him if you guys tear up the whole Sun Trail. 36.
What's our furthest downriver casualty point?
64 bridge.
10-4 believed to be going downriver. I can head straight down there.
Negative. Suspect went into the woods at the initial location, a quarter mile upriver from the 64 bridge.
10-4. Did he go up on the north or south bank?
South bank. The cider cars are on.
Chase, do you want me to continue up to you, or do you want me to take my squad up the road further into the woods?
Yep. Up the river. Or correction. Eric, just go to the woods. We need this EMS here. Get these people out of here.
10-4. I just talked to rescue. They're working on getting the boat into the water and up to you guys.
Okay, great. Can one of you hold his hand?
21 to 29.
Careful, please be careful.
The road ends the up along the riverbank. If you can get guys,
Wash it out, buddy.
head that way up there. Perimeter possibly. The road isn't that far from the river.
Just hold that there, okay? Just leave that there.
AJ, you hold on, okay?
10-4. He'll cut the squeeze past their slots and stuff. Copy. I'll point that way.
What the suspect wearing? Swim shorts, clothes?
Swim shirts and a t-shirt.
Okay.
A white t-shirt. I know, he had a t-shirt on for a pot belly.
Older man, he's in his 50s, 60s. He just has a knife.
46 to 29. Good. I'm just coming through the ridge.
Can I just hold pressure on his stomach?
Perimeter.
Hold what? Pressure.
Yep, I'll go to the end of the Sunrise Trail and we'll link up there.
8819 dispatch. Suspect information.
8819, go to the suspect.
Being told a white male, swim shorts, shirtless, armed with a knife, possibly 50 years old. This person described him as Russian looking.
Do we have a color on those swim shorts?
Negative. Can't get that yet. Also, two of the friends of the person ran off into the woods are looking for the suspects. We have some other people contaminating the area.
Then for adult male, approximately 50 years of age, shirtless, wearing unknown color swim shorts with a knife, and two friends of victims are out looking for the suspect as well. 1608.
8019 dispatch.
8819.
Disregard. Where did the suspect go into the woods at?
I didn't see that. I had
This way. We have a canine coming.
get stabbed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I know.
I saw him before the fight started,
I have a rag. I don't know how much it's going to help,
and then he
but if
punched
it's
one
going
of
to
the
help
girls in the
anybody,
face.
Okay.
if you want to apply it with another rag.
One here, one there.
44 to 29.
They don't know. No one knows. They said this region. They don't know exactly where.
I have these two trauma bandages. I got a tourniquet and some quick clot Z-bolt.
His guts are hanging out. The other one, I haven't been over to that one yet.
Let's throw that on his
Here.
person.
44 to 29. I don't know if those Fred. We're just getting off at the 6. Where do you need us?
I think 29 up the road here farther. Try to set
Yeah.
up perimeter.
At the end of Sunrise Trail here, it's pretty thick. I'm not going to be able to see much down here. I would say go to the highway and start looking on that way.
Hold on, we're up there somewhere.
10-4, we'll be up the highway. She's 26 dispatch, 3-1 out to Thomasson.
Here we go. You're
She's 26 route.
hold on to me, okay?
8819 to the dispatch. Our two most critical patients are up here, upriver. Is this?
No. ED 19 has 2 critical patients upriver. Do you have a team to go extract them?
I didn't catch that. We're a quarter mile upriver from the bridge. We can see the squads. One, no vitals. CPR in progress.
10-40-19. I believe I have EMS in the area.
Do we have any helicopters en route for Lakeview or Lifelink?
Affirmative. 2 helicopters this time. 8821 dispatch. For the 10th mile upriver from the bridge, we have a male subject with a abdominal stab wound and a laceration to the leg. We have another male subject with a lateral slash across his abdomen, and we have one subject with a stab wound to the chest. CPR in progress. 10-3 victims, 1/10 of a mile upriver, leg stab, open abdomen, and a chest stab. CPR in progress.
Tell me I'm annoying. I know I'm annoying. I know.
16, 19.
Go ahead.
Do we need additional agencies to assist with perimeter?
Yes. And I don't know, State Patrol's helicopter was in the area from Minnesota. I don't know if that's something we can utilize.
Hey, 16 dispatch. If Richmond's available and see if Polk County can send some deputies down.
Keep talking. You're doing so fun.
10 for Richmond, cars copy.
Keep going. All right? You got this, baby.
Sergeant Durand, were you able to watch that as we all watched it?
Yes.
At some point in your body cam, did you run up into the woods?
Yes.
What was that all about?
There was movement up in the woods, people yelling at somebody. I ran up there, determined those two people that were gonna go try to find the suspect. I told them to come back due to us having a canine coming, not to mess up the scent for the dog and then confuse the perimeter or any type of aerial drone or helicopter assets coming to assist searching.
Did you know who those folks were up in the woods that were looking for the suspect?
No.
Did you see yourself on your body cam saying that they were friends of the victims?
Yes, through the yelling in the crowd, I determined there was some type of relationship with the people.
But as of today, you don't know if they had any connection to these victims?
I don't know their exact connection.
And when you went up into the woods, you asked one of the people up there what the victim or the suspect looked like?
Yes.
And what was his response?
He didn't know.
So it appears that from your body cam, at least, you were coordinating the response to this incident?
Yes.
Is that part of your duties as a sergeant?
Yes, it is.
At the same time, were you trying to get any info you could gather about who did it?
Yes,
And you were able to get some bits and pieces of that information?
yes, there was a lot of information being thrown at me or people yelling, but the one person I had talked to in the yellow shirt had the most amount of information about the suspect.
Were you also in the process trying to set up a perimeter to make sure that the suspect didn't get away?
Yes,
At some point, did you call for a state patrol helicopter?
yes, when I was in Holton, I had saw that Minnesota's state patrol helicopter was over Stillwater prior to coming to the call.
And what was the purpose of calling the state patrol, Minnesota State Patrol helicopter?
Their air assets have thermal cameras. Wisconsin's airplanes do not.
Did the Minnesota State Patrol helicopter respond to the area?
I do not know.
Nothing further.
Mr. Shropsey?
Good morning, sir. You had indicated that on direct examination that you saw those, as you said, people that were friends with, I think you said friends with the victims who were up in the woods, right?
Yes,
And you asked them, now, they tell you what they're doing, right?
yes,
They say to go find the motherfucker, right?
yes,
And you took that to, tell me if this is fair, you took that as they wanted to go see if they could locate where this person was, right?
I interpreted it as they're going to look for the suspect.
The way they said it, did it make you think that they were angry?
His
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
You say one of your tell me if this is fair. One of your concerns about them running up into the woods was that you were sending a canine, right?
yes,
Was another one of your concerns what might happen if they run into them?
yes,
Okay. Do you tell them to stop?
I asked them to come back. Yes, I don't remember my exact words to them, but I asked them to not go into the woods.
Okay. And they tell you they're going to look for them, and then you come back down into the river, right?
Yes,
Did you see any of the people that were up in the woods? Did you see any of them with a weapon, a baseball bat?
no,
And you were initially told that this suspect was wearing, and I think you said scuba gear?
yes.
Okay. What did you take that to mean?
I interpreted it as some type of swim mask and unknown what past that, ranging from a snorkel and a mask to scuba tanks and that type of gear.
Okay. And it looked like to me, the people that were, some of the civilians that were tending to a person that we know as A.J. Martin, told you that the suspect had gone up into the woods. Is that fair?
Yes,
Would you describe that situation, I don't, you've been an officer for a while, would you describe that as a pretty hectic situation?
yes,
And you're getting a lot of information kind of thrown at you at once. Is that fair also?
yes, I was.
Okay. And you're getting different descriptions of the suspect in scuba gear and and then he's got on shorts. So you're getting all kinds of things thrown at you. Is that reasonable?
Yes,
Okay. Are you having some, I don't want to say difficulty, but are you trying to process what's happening in terms of the information you're getting?
I'm taking all information in that is being yelled by people in the water, bystanders, and disseminating out to the rest of the officers on scene and dispatch what seemed to be the most accurate information I was getting.
Okay, and in terms of making that determination as to what's the most accurate, what are you basing that information on in terms of what's true and what's not true?
People that said that they saw the actual event happen versus ones that saw the aftermath of what happened.
Okay, and so the people that are telling you what happened were, in your mind, the people that were near the people that were being tended to? Is that fair?
Some people,
Your Honor, overruled. Overruled, you can answer.
some people that I had asked in passing by, they said they didn't see it actually happen. And then the people that were attending to and in the area, the man in the yellow shirt was giving me the most information that had detail.
Okay, and so those people that were giving you that information, that was the information that you were trying to relay out. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, so then did you relay out that the suspect had run into the woods? Do you know now whether or not that's true?
I do not.
Sergeant, I don't have any other questions for you. Thank you for your time today.
Mr. Smestad? All right, thank you, Sergeant. You may step down. Everyone okay continuing? Anybody need a break? Let's continue. Mr. Smestad, who's next?
Calls Levi Stumo.
Last name again?
Levi Stumo, Stumo.
We are in recess.
I know. Yeah. I don't know. You got it.
right, please be seated. All right, we're back in session. Everyone is present and accounted for. Mr. Anderson, who is the next witness?
State calls Levi Stumo.
Mr. Stumo, please come forward. Please face the clerk, raise your right hand. She will administer the oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat in the witness chair. Mr. Anderson.
Can you please state your name and spell your last name?
Levi Stumo, Stumo.
And did you previously work for the Somerset Police Department?
Yes,
You employed by a different law enforcement agency currently?
yes,
So back in July, on the 30th of 22, were you dispatched to the stabbing on the Apple River?
yes,
Did you respond to that bridge area?
I did, yes.
And did you arrive with some other officers?
Yes.
Do you recall who they were?
Sergeant Ferell and another deputy.
And of the three of you, do you know who the first one to head upstream was, upriver?
Are you referring to after getting onto the river itself?
Yes.
I believe that was me.
And did you have body camera on at the time?
I did.
Let's have may I approach?
Yes.
What's been marked as Exhibit 42, what's that labeled as?
Stumo body camera.
To admit and publish portions.
All right, 42 is received. Go ahead and play the portions you wish to show.
I'll just do it. While I'm doing this, did you, after you were at the scene of the stabbings, did you go out to another location also?
Correct.
What was the second location?
The Village Park.
What'd you end up going there for?
To assist with apprehending the suspect if he was located at that location.
And Village Park, is that the exit for the tubers?
Correct.
All right. Can we have the screen? Looks. I'm on 1:54 seconds. If we would have watched earlier, it'd just be you driving to the scene.
That is correct.
KD 100 will be working on getting the investigators out. 10 for Sealy handles ready to. I wasn't aware of that when I talked to him. 10 for August. KD 30 Petra, dispatch Sunrise, access is open. Sunrise access.
While this is playing, is this that private road for an old campground?
Open down to the river.
Yes, it is.
10 for 1554.
Baldazo dispatch should be on scene just underneath. Flag down the eagle.
We have to take the river down.
He punched me in the face. I don't know what the fuck.
I got someone who can't move. Go help him. Please.
We're going to help.
We got a gentleman down there. His guts are out in the fucking open.
Okay.
All right, I'm stopping at 3 minutes, 30 seconds. I'm gonna jump ahead. I'm gonna mute the screen, please. All right, I'm ready. I'm gonna play from 4 minutes, 29 seconds.
You might be dead by now.
How far at?
Right there by the yellow shirt.
One individual slit from here to his chest.
All right.
His guts are exposed. The other one is slit, stabbed in the chest. There's one stab in the area.
3 down there? We got 3 individuals down the river. Significant stabbing.
The other person, their lung is popped.
Okay, how deep? Not deep? All right.
It's bleeding bad. The person's balls are out. He's about to lose consciousness.
All right.
We're doing CPR on the one whose lung is popped. Right here. The one.
Is he on the other side of the river?
No, on this side. Right down. Right there. Two of you right next to each other.
All right, you want to help me out here?
I'm gonna pause at 5:36. That gentleman you just made contact with, did you have any idea who that was at the time?
I did not.
I just want to write down, look like 1557 on the bottom of the screen there.
Correct.
That'll be 357, is that right?
Correct.
And I'm going to continue playing.
Where's the guy? Okay, where's the stabber?
I heard Jeff is going to be off Sunrise.
Yeah. Can't go fast.
I'm pausing at 6:41. You can take the screen down.
Nelson.
Sir, the video showed you getting out of the car, walking toward the river. Is that right?
Correct.
And there's a blonde woman in a blue bathing suit, correct?
That is correct.
And you body cam captures her, correct?
Correct.
And as you know, body cams, you're absolutely able to like take a screenshot of that, correct?
Correct.
And on the body cam, the blonde girl in the blue swimsuit, her face is fully visible, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Were you ever asked to take a screenshot to zoom in on her face?
No.
Did you ever do that?
No.
You aware if anybody else ever did that?
No.
Did you ever come back and have contact with that blonde woman in the blue swimsuit?
I don't believe so.
And again, there's a lot going on, correct?
That is correct.
She wasn't, she didn't have any injuries that you observed, correct?
Correct.
Had she had injuries that you observed, you probably either would have told somebody else, tended to it, or tried to document them in some way, correct?
That is correct.
That's what you're trained to do as a law enforcement officer, correct?
That is correct.
In that moment, again, I don't mean to imply I'm critical of you, it's just you didn't have any awareness that she had an injury, correct?
Correct.
You didn't observe one, correct?
Sustained.
You, at some point, and it's not on the video, it stopped, but if we continue on in the video, you move forward, continue up the river, is that right?
Correct.
And as you go up the river, you have contact with a married couple, who's rendering CPR aid to one of the people who's injured, correct?
That is correct.
You've now come to know that that's Andrea and Robert Baldazo.
Correct.
At some point, did you see, you were speaking with them, correct?
Correct.
Did you speak with Mr. Baldazo?
Correct.
And did you observe him pick up a snorkel and/or goggles?
I don't believe so.
Were you the one that collected those?
No.
Did he tell you about those?
No.
Did you make any observations of the snorkel or goggle?
I did not.
Did you speak with Mr. Baldazo about his knife?
I did not.
You want to ask you a little bit about the search for the suspect, okay?
Sure.
You heard different things, or let me take back. You were a part of that, correct?
Correct.
At some point, right?
Correct.
At first, it was all about rendering aid, correct?
Yes.
Taking care of people's safety, right?
Yes.
And making sure you could secure the safety of everybody else, considering you didn't know what was going on, right?
Yes.
You at some point learned that there were citizens that were looking for the suspect, correct?
Yes.
And you came to learn that at least one of those citizens had a bat, correct?
I apologize. Had a what?
Had a baseball bat?
I do not recall it this time.
Okay. When you were at Village Park, were you aware of that? You didn't remember that guy looking around for Mr. Miu with a bat?
I do not remember.
You certainly remember that there were non-law enforcement citizens that were looking for Mr. Miu, correct?
Correct.
And did you, you didn't know what their intent was, correct?
That is correct.
You, as a law enforcement officer, wanted to secure the suspect, correct?
Correct.
Both to keep everybody else safe from the suspect, correct?
Correct.
As well as to keep the suspect safe from everybody else, correct?
Yes.
You certainly don't want a lynch mob going after somebody, correct?
Correct.
And that was probably one of your concerns, is that the temperature on that river on that day at that time was extremely high and intense, right?
That is correct.
Lots of strong emotions, correct?
Yes.
And when you have and there were strong, intense emotions coming from numerous people, correct?
Yes.
And you, as a trained officer, were concerned about how those strong and intense emotions from numerous people could kind of escalate each other, correct?
Objected, relevant speculation.
Sustained.
You have concerns about the suspect's safety as well as everybody else's safety?
Objection, asked and answered.
Didn't say that. Did you help in eventually finding and handcuffing Mr. Miu, correct?
I assisted with the very end portion of that, I suppose. Yes.
And he was, fair to say, compliant with law enforcement's requests, correct?
Correct.
He didn't resist in any way, correct?
Correct.
At the time, I would imagine you didn't know whether he had a weapon or didn't have a weapon, correct?
That is correct.
I would imagine at some point, if you find out somebody has a weapon, that changes things from your standpoint, correct?
Correct.
Would it be, again, trying to summarize and be quick, you're thankful that he didn't have a weapon when you had contact with him?
Sustained.
Did he have a weapon when you had contact with him?
Not that I was aware of, no.
Did he have a phone when you had contact with him?
I do not recall.
That's all.
Mr. Anderson?
When we're responding to this incident, what was your primary concern?
My primary concern was the victims on the river.
Stabbing victims?
That is correct.
Were you looking to see if other people had bruises or scratches or slight swelling or anything like that, or not paying attention to that kind of thing?
Only what was immediately directed to me.
So significant injuries?
Correct.
Nothing else, Judge.
Mr. Nelson? Thank you, Officer Stumo. You may step down. Who is the next witness? Deputy Triban, please come forward. Please face the clerk. Raise your right hand. She will administer the oath. Please have a seat in the witness chair. Mr. Smestad.
Will you say your name for the record, please?
Deputy Benjamin Triban, last name Trebian.
And what do you do for a living?
Patrol deputy with St. Croix County.
How long have you been a law enforcement officer?
About 4.5 years.
What are your general duties as a patrol officer?
Patrol, take calls, respond to calls.
Were you on duty back on July 30th of 2022?
I was.
Were you one of the many officers that got dispatched to the stabbings on the Apple River in Somerset?
I was.
What was the information you were given initially?
I was given that there was multiple people that were stabbed on the river. I was sent a photo, was asked to respond to an area and set up a perimeter.
What was the photo you were sent?
Male, 50s, he was described as Russian, wearing camo swim trunks.
Who was supposedly the photo of?
Nicolae Miu, or the suspect in the stabbing.
Thank you. Were you given a specific assignment in relation to your response?
I was just tasked with responding to perimeter. I set up on near I and 170th and was moving there.
All right. At some point, did you get called away from where you were trying to establish a perimeter?
Yes.
And before we move on, when you say you're establishing a perimeter, what are you trying to do?
Just contain the suspect into a certain area.
At that point, had a suspect been located?
Not at that point.
At some point, you moved away from where you were assigned to establish a perimeter?
Yes.
Where'd you go?
I responded. We were advised that possible suspect was seen at the tubing exit. I responded to corner of Sunrise and Parent Street in Somerset, where I then ran down to the tubing exit.
Were other law enforcement officers there by the time you arrived?
Yes,
Were you wearing a body camera that day?
I was.
Were you recording your actions at that time?
Yes.
I can approach the witness, Judge.
Yes, you may.
Deputy, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 47. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is it?
It's my body cam flash drive.
Is it labeled?
Yes.
What's the label say?
Triban AC video.
That's your name?
Yep.
All right, move for admission of 47 and ask to publish.
Any objection to 47?
No, Judge.
It is received. Go ahead and play the portions you wish to show.
This particular segment, Judge, is the whole video. It's less than 2 minutes. I'll start from the beginning and play to the end.
Tell us when you're ready.
It's 2 minutes, 8 seconds, Judge. We're starting right at the beginning. We're ready.
Camera recording started.
Appears to be wearing a camel colored shirt.
I'm sorry, yeah. No,
You're
it's
just
okay.
being detained at this point, okay?
Yes.
D6 dispatch, believe we have the suspect detained. Believe we have him detained at this time.
No, no weapons or anything like that.
Number
No.
36 has a
You don't
possible
even have my
suspect
shoes on.
detained at
Okay.
6049. Everybody hold where they're at. We need a photo so we can start this.
I got it.
I'm coming up on across the bridge right now.
Like I said, you're just being detained at this point, okay, boss?
I got a photo on my phone. I'll be there in a second.
Yeah. Chain matches.
Yep, camera.
Shorts.
What's your name?
Nick.
Nick what?
Nick Miu.
Okay. Take him to the bus. You can bring him over my...
What did he do?
This way.
Bring him over my squad. He's not double locked at this point.
All right, we'll worry about it over here.
Yep. He's got a silver
It
chain on him.
matches.
Silver blockchain.
Same shorts.
Yes. Let me double lock this quick.
Number.
Like I said, sir, you're just detained at this point, okay? We'll explain anything in a second here. Got some pretty good markings on his hand, too. Alright. So let's take a picture of that. Yeah, we're on his thumb.
Deputy, was that your body cam, or portion of your body cam from that day?
Yes.
When you made contact with Mr. Miu at the park. Did his clothing match what his clothing was in the photo you were sent, or the suspect you were looking for?
In the photo, he was just wearing shorts at the time. And the video there, he's wearing a camo button-down shirt. He's got glasses and a hat on.
When he was first detained, did you know for sure that he was the person you were looking for?
Not initially when I observed him, but once we pulled up the photos and confirmed the markings, then we did.
Did you have to remove his hat and his glasses to confirm that?
I believe so, yes.
You indicated in the body cam that he had some markings on his hands?
Yes.
Can you describe those?
Just cuts and nicks on knuckles and on his hands.
Did you take some pictures of those?
I did.
Yes, you may.
Deputy, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 48. Can you tell me what that is?
Pictures of Mr. Miu's hands that I took.
How many pages?
2.
How many actual photographs?
2.
Is that what you described as the markings that were on his hands?
Yes.
Are those the photos you took that day?
Yes.
With permission of Exhibit 48?
Any objection?
No objection.
48 is received.
Ask for permission to publish.
Yes, you may.
I'll do it on the camo.
Try, oh, clear it, we'll start again.
I can.
No, that's working.
I'll say for the record, that's page 1 of the exhibit. That's page 2. After Mr. Miu was taken into custody, did you have any more involvement in this case that day?
Once he was taken into custody, I then searched his person, didn't locate anything on his person. I also assisted with canine search of the area of where the stabbing took place, and evidence collection at that point down by the river there.
Nothing further.
Mr. Nelson?
I want to ask you some questions of there at Village Park, okay?
Yep.
Village Park is where the exit is for the river, correct?
Yes.
Pretty much everyone who gets on the river gets off at Village Park, right?
Yes.
Today or on this day, there was some exceptions that people were diverted over to another place to exit, correct?
I don't recall if there was a secondary point to exit.
And I wasn't trying, there was an ambulance that came, people exited where the ambulance was.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
There was a small group of people that exited there. Fair to say?
Yes.
When I say small, it might be multiple groups, but it's like less than 50 people. Agreed?
Maybe.
Okay. Were you there at that point where the bridge goes over, Highway 35, 64 goes over, and where they brought the people with injuries out? Were you there ever?
Later after, with helping with evidence collection.
Okay, but not until, by that time, I would imagine the people that had exited in that place were essentially had gone. Fair to say?
Probably.
Okay. You didn't observe them at least, correct?
I did not, no.
You don't have a memory of it at least?
No.
So at the exit at the Village Park, you'd gotten a description of the man that you were looking for, correct?
Correct.
And it was based upon this photo that somebody had provided and distributed around, correct?
Correct.
And you know that that photo may have also been distributed to some citizens, some non-law enforcement people, for all you knew, correct?
I can't say that for certain.
Okay. Do you have knowledge of that now?
No, not until you said that.
Okay. And in addition to the photo, you had somebody's physical description, correct?
Yes.
And when you get a physical description, you in that position, you have, you rely on it, correct?
Yes.
It may or may not be accurate, right?
Potentially.
Yeah. It may or may not be helpful, correct?
Possibly.
You're not there to judge the accuracy of it. You're just, you got that information and you're going to process it for whatever value it's worth, right?
Correct.
So in this situation, somebody said he looks Russian, correct?
Correct.
What does a Russian look like?
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained.
Was that helpful to you in any manner?
Not particularly.
Okay. When you were there at the village park, do you gain knowledge that there was a man with a bat looking for Mr. Miu?
I remember hearing about that, yes.
And in fact, that man with the bat had confronted Mr. Miu just before the arrest, as far as you know. Is that right?
Objection, foundation. Sustained.
Do you know?
I do not recall if he ever approached him.
Okay. Were your handcuffs placed on Mr. Miu?
I did not place handcuffs, but I was there, yes.
Somebody else placed the handcuffs on him?
Yes.
Their other set?
I'm sorry, what can you repeat?
Somebody else's set of handcuffs were put on Mr. Miu?
Yes.
At some point, were you there to see that pair of handcuffs taken off and another pair of handcuffs put on him?
Yes.
And during that exchange, from Mr. Miu's one set of handcuffs being taken on to another set of handcuffs being taken on, do you remember the talk at that point in the presence of Mr. Miu about there's a guy looking for walking around with a bat? Do you remember that?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what we were talking about at that time, but
Do you remember that during one of the body cams?
yeah, I remember hearing about it.
Okay. And do you remember how Mr. Miu reacted in your presence when he heard that there was a man on the river looking for him with a body cam? Do you remember his look of surprise?
I do not know.
Do you remember his look of shock?
No, I
Do you remember his look of fear?
No, I don't recall that.
Okay. So were you the person that essentially, for lack of a better term, identified Mr. Miu, like, we think it's him?
We saw him, yes, and then looking at the photo that we were sent, we confirmed it, yes.
Okay, and I understand you're using the word "we." You're the one here talking, so I'm not going to use the "we." I'm just talking about you. Agreed?
Yes.
You saw him, and you're like, I think that's the guy.
Correct.
And at the time that you saw him. Can I get exhibits? I think it's 110 and 111, 112. All of those, if I could. Thank you. When you saw Mr. Miu, he had on a hat, is that right?
Yes.
Do you know if when he started the day on that trip, he had a hat on?
I do not.
When you saw Mr. Miu, you saw him with glasses on, correct?
Sunglasses, yes.
Do you know if when he started that trip, he had sunglasses on?
I do not.
When you saw Mr. Miu, he had a shirt on, correct?
Correct.
Do you know if when he started that trip, he had his shirt on?
I do not.
He also had shorts on?
Yes.
Do you know if when he started the trip, he had shorts on?
I don't for sure, but I'd assume so.
And when you saw him, he had a necklace on, correct?
Yes.
You know if when he started the trip, he had the necklace on?
I don't.
And then when you saw him, he had shoes on, correct?
Yeah, sandals.
And do you know if he started the trip with those shoes on?
I do not.
Essentially, those are the 6 things that you saw that he was wearing at the end of the trip when you saw him, correct?
Correct.
You don't know what of those 6 things he was wearing at the beginning, correct?
Objection asked and answered.
When you saw him, you saw the necklace and the shorts. I'm sorry, the picture showed him with necklace and shorts, correct?
Correct.
You were still able to say, when you saw him wearing all 6 of the items, you were still able to say, I think that's the guy, correct?
Yes.
And when you essentially, you and other law enforcement officers said something along the lines of, come with us, right? You verbally told the person who we now know as Mr. Miu to like, stop, something along those lines? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And when you was given that verbal command, he complied, correct?
Yes.
He was very, as we saw through it there, very cooperative, correct?
Yes.
The first words out of his mouth were something like, I'm sorry, something like that?
I don't recall. That's what it was.
And then you had close contact with him, correct?
Yes.
And you're a trained police officer. You're trying to both make sure everybody's safe as well as at some point maybe do some investigation, collect evidence, correct?
Yes.
It's all going on at the same time, right?
Yes.
So at some point during that, you make observations of his hands, correct?
Yes.
And when you made those observations, you made a point to document it, correct?
Yes.
Because that's what police do, right?
Yeah.
When they see evidence, they make sure they document it, correct?
Yes.
Can you imagine a world in which if you saw a mark on his hands, you wouldn't take a photo?
Objection, Your Honor, is relevant.
Sustained.
You took a photo of his hands.
Yes.
Why?
Evidence of potential evidence of crime.
You would agree the marks on his hands, you don't know how he got those, right?
I do not know.
They would be consistent with somebody perhaps falling in the river and having their hands hit the bottom of the river.
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation irrelevant.
Sustained on foundation.
Have you seen people with marks on their hands before?
Yes.
Have you seen people fall in the river before?
Yes.
You've seen people's hands hit rocks and dirt and ground before?
Yes.
Would you say what you observed on his hands are consistent with someone obtaining those marks from falling in the river and having their hand hit rocks and dirt and ground?
Potentially. As a law enforcement officer, I imagine you have times where you deal with people who have drank alcohol, correct? Yes.
And sometimes that's relevant evidence that you want to, again, document, correct?
Yes.
Some of those things that you would document would be something that you smell, right?
Yes.
Or some of the things that you document might be the speech that you hear that somebody says, correct?
Yes.
Because if somebody's intoxicated, they often smell of alcohol, correct?
Yes.
If somebody's intoxicated, they often have slurred speech, correct?
Yes.
When you notice those things, you might document them in a report, correct?
Yes.
And then you might do further investigation to try to collect additional information to confirm your observations, right?
Yes.
That might be simply to ask somebody a question, right?
Yes.
Might be to give somebody a chemical test, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, irrelevant.
It's very relevant.
Oh. Can we get to the point?
Yep. And if you have that observation, sometimes you don't only document it, you might give it on to somebody else that you're working with, correct?
Yes.
And in this case, you passed none of that information on to anybody else. Agreed?
Agreed.
And you didn't document anything regarding any particular smell of alcohol or signs of intoxication or alcohol use, correct?
I did not know.
And you didn't document those because when you were in close contact with Mr. Miu, you had no evidence, no reason to believe that he'd been consuming alcohol to the point that it would have been relevant evidence for you to collect, right?
My contact with him, I didn't notice any signs.
Sure. You were certainly, and appropriately so, in your role as a law enforcement officer, you were right there next to him, correct?
Correct.
For at least several minutes, correct?
Yes.
That's all.
Mr. Smestad?
Deputy, was part of the other information you had, in addition to what he looked like on the river, the picture, were you told whether he was alone or in a group?
I don't recall that.
When you made contact with him at the village park, was he with other folks?
Yes.
How many?
Roughly 12 to 15 maybe.
Had you ever been given information to look for a group of 12 to 15 people that he might be in it?
Not that I recall.
it fair to say there was a number of law enforcement officers located at Village Park when Mr. Miu came up from the beach?
Yes,
Did you see him approach any law enforcement officers?
I did not, no.
Did you see officers approach him?
When we approached him, yes.
This is in a situation where you surrendered?
Yes.
Did you, once he was detained, Mr. Nelson had asked you some questions about his, I guess, his expression. Do you remember any shocked expression on his face?
I do not know.
Do you remember, what do you remember about what his face looked like?
That he was kind of in a trance, didn't really say anything. I just remember him saying his name, and when he was told that he was detained, he said yes, and kind of in a trance-like state almost.
Nothing further.
Mr. Nelson?
Your experience as a law enforcement officer, I imagine you've dealt with victims in the past, correct?
Yes.
Victims of violent crime, correct?
Yes.
Sometimes when you've dealt with victims of violent crime, you've seen them in ways that you observe to be expressions of shock, right?
Yes.
Not like shock as in surprise, but just like shock as in trauma, correct?
Correct.
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
And sometimes in those observations that you've seen of people who have been victims of violent crime, that can be expressed in a manner of like a trance-like state, correct?
Potentially, yes.
And that's what you saw from Mr. Miu was consistent with that shock-like trauma, correct?
Shock or something similar.
That's all.
Thank you, Deputy. You may step down. Who is the next witness?
Sure. No, sorry. Yeah, Mitch Thomasson.
Nothing to share.
Do we have to talk about his body cam?
Yes.
All right. Members of the jury, I do need to speak with the attorneys about a matter, so we're going to excuse you to the deliberation room. I hope this won't take very long, but please be patient.
All rise for the jury.
Please be seated. We are outside the presence of the jury. The attorneys and Mr. Miu are present. At the beginning of trial, Mr. Nelson submitted a letter with a motion of sorts objecting to a portion of Deputy Thomasson's body camera footage. Mr. Anderson, you've received a copy of that letter?
Yes.
Who's arguing the motion?
I can.
Okay. Are you intending to play the portions that he's objecting to?
Yes.
All right. What's the basis?
So Miranda only applies if it's a question likely to elicit an incriminating response. They said, you're under arrest for homicide and attempted homicide. Okay. And he said, okay. That's it. They're not interrogating him. They're not asking him questions about the incident. They're just asking if he heard what they said. He says, okay.
Mr. Nelson?
Respectfully, I disagree with that recitation of the facts. It's a very short video, and I don't see any reason why Your Honor couldn't watch it right now. They do tell him he's under arrest. They do say, okay, and he doesn't respond. They then say, we're next going to essentially bring you to the police station, and there's going to be an investigator there to speak with you. And then they ask the question, all right, and it's to that question that he responds, okay. So it is not in response to the information that he's being charged with a crime. It's in response to a question about what happens next and where you're going to go.
So you're objecting on Miranda grounds.
I'm objecting on relevancy, and I'm also objecting on Miranda.
What's the relevance?
So he's acknowledging he's hearing what the officers are saying, and then he acts surprised in his interview, like he didn't know somebody died. There's a lot of that that's going to be argued in closing, the chaos at the scene, all the victims there, everybody else seeing what's going on. That will be one of our arguments. But then also, he's told he's under arrest for homicide, and then told there's going to be, somebody's going to talk to him. He acknowledges he hears them,
Okay.
and then he acts like he's surprised in the interview.
Judge, if I may?
Yes.
If the state wanted to introduce testimony from a law enforcement officer that said, I told X to Mr. Miu, I think they get to do that. It's the response that we're worried about. And so if they call the officer and the officer says, I told him he was under arrest for X and Y, there's no, I don't think they, what happened next is the cutoff, but I think they get to do that. And I think that addresses whatever relevancy there is to it without having to get into Mr. Miu's response.
I guess I don't understand what the prejudice is.
By same token, what's the relevance?
I think I just outlined it. That's our position. I
There's the
haven't,
prejudice. I mean, they don't want that to come in because it's obviously harmful.
but why? I haven't heard it articulated why it's prejudicial. They just, not wanting it to come in isn't prejudice.
So a couple of things. I don't have to prove it's prejudicial. You have to prove it's relevant. If it's relevant, I can then argue it's unfairly prejudiced. That's not my argument. I'm saying his answer is not relevant. If you want his answer in, which is what you, I think, are trying to do, that's a different relevancy analysis. And first, that's a Miranda violation. Second, I think his answer is, the probative value is outweighed by the probative value of his answer is outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. So the question, I think, really is, what's the relevance of his answer? Not his being told the information. We get that, we concede that.
So if it has any tendency to make it more or less likely it's relevant to be excluded, this prejudice has to substantially outweigh the relevance by statute. And I still haven't heard an articulation on how it's prejudicial.
Okay, let's turn this a different way. What about the Miranda analysis?
It's not a question likely to or meant to elicit an incriminating response. It's just,
But you're using it to prove he's guilty. So isn't it an incriminating response?
it turned out to be, but at the time they're just asking if he heard. But it's only useful to the state because then he later acts like he didn't know somebody died.
Just lastly, Judge, again, his answer isn't to the information about his arrest. His answer is in response to they're telling him they're taking him to the police station where he's going to meet with an investigator.
I saw the video once during motion practice, so I have a vague recollection of the sequence, but if it's short, let's take a look at it so I can make a fresh decision. Tell us when you're ready.
All right, I'm ready.
Yep. Last I heard was nothing is gonna poke me, break me, stick me, hurt me in any way.
So right now you're being placed under arrest, okay? You're being placed under arrest for homicide and attempted homicide. And that's all we're gonna discuss with you right now. More than likely an investigator will come talk to you at the jail. All right? Okay.
Further thoughts? Anything else?
No.
All right, the video, in my judgment, has evidentiary value to a point. If it is the state's contention that Mr. Miu acted like he didn't know what was going on or acted surprised during the jail interview, I think it's relevant to show that he had advanced knowledge about the circumstances of his arrest. So clearly the portion of the video where he's being taken into custody, the deputy tells him the reason for it, I think is relevant for that purpose. We can see on the video, Mr. Miu appears to be alert, he appears to be paying attention. So I think that will feed into the state's argument. That much is relevant. The portion where Mr. Miu acknowledges what was being said had to do with the investigator coming to see him. That does not have the same relevance that you're describing here, because it has nothing to do with Mr. Miu being told about the charges. He's being told about something else, which is not relevant to the jury's task. So I'm ruling portion of the video after the reason for the arrest is announced is irrelevant. I don't know what mark that was in the sequence, so we'll have to go through one more to identify exactly the point where it's going to stop.
Okay. Oh, can we get the screen?
Simmons under arrest? Are we done that yet? Last I heard was nothing is gonna poke me, break me, stick me, hurt me in any way. Absolutely.
So right now you're being placed under arrest, okay? You're being placed under arrest for homicide and attempted homicide. And that's
the point.
2036. Obviously, if it's a second or so off, as long as I'm not getting the part that Your Honor said, I.
Continue playing, let's see how close it is.
That's all we're gonna discuss with you right now. More than likely an investigator.
So 236. 236 is the spot. All right, anything else we need to address?
We made for Sheriff Knutson, given Your Honor's order on the suppression motion, we actually clipped it, so we didn't, because that one happens really fast, the follow-up. So we clipped it down to 23 seconds, so I was just gonna play that to make sure that Your Honor agrees it's in line with your order, defense does, so there's no surprises.
You've seen the clipped version?
We,
I've not.
Okay, let's play it then. If Knutson is next, let's play it. We can roll right into the next witness.
and we actually are doing Thomasson first, so it'll be Thomasson, then Knutson.
Okay.
And I imagine their defense doesn't want a suggestion that there's more than this body cam, so I was just gonna ask, is your body cam on this flash drive? Ask to publish, play it, and not go into detail or ask if it's only a portion, et cetera.
Sounds fair.
And just for the record, this has the full one on there, but actually want to pull up the screen so we can see it. The reason we have both of them on there is because in the event Nicolai testifies, the rest could potentially be used if your court, Your Honor, agrees that it's not coerced. I don't think we've ever, it was mentioned in briefing, but I don't think there's ever a ruling on it, but
Just so my understanding is when that exhibit is marked and that exhibit is published, we're all agreeing that for now, it's the digital file titled 23 seconds for court.
correct.
Agreed.
Agreed.
That's my understanding.
We can have the screen back.
Good play.
Camera recording started.
Still doing all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's going
Temperature's okay in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody,
All right.
I hear somebody got stabbed.
Um,
And I fit the description.
Yes, you do.
All right.
Yep, so we're working through that now.
We tried to end it too on a spot that seemed like it's not cutting off and it feels natural.
I agree that that portion of the video is consistent with the court's ruling. So other than our previous objections, I
Right.
understand and don't add any more.
I agree, the 23 seconds portion is consistent with my ruling as well, so that will be admissible and played to the jury when the time comes.
As long as we're outside of the presence of the jury, when Mr. Thomasson is called, I understand this, they're gonna play this clip. Mr. Thompson has another video. I don't know if the state intends to call that portion of the video. I intend to play a portion of that video in which the presence of the baseball bat is discussed in front of Mr. Miu. So as long as we're out, I don't know if they're gonna have an objection. If so, I just wanted to let everybody know right now. It's on exhibit number, or it's on previously marked discovery video number 105 at approximately the 3-minute mark. I'm happy to pull it up right now and we can.
I have the actual exhibit here, so. We didn't have advance warning that they wanted to do that, so I have not watched that portion recently.
So I don't know how long their direct is. We can deal with it now. We can sort it out over the lunch hour, whatever Your Honor wants to do.
How long's your direct?
I'm doing it, Your Honor. It's not lengthy. The portions of the video that I was planning on playing are very short, obviously.
So we'll probably get to your cross.
Okay.
How much cross do you have? Do you have a lot of cross?
Depends on your definition of a lot. But no, I don't think so, Judge.
So potentially, we could get to your portion of the video before noon.
Yes,
All right,
potentially.
let's take a look then.
Who's gonna be pulling it up?
I am.
If you could start it at 2:55, just so I know exactly what's, I think it starts at the 3-minute mark.
You can turn it on. When the jury's out, we can.
Give your second.
The guy with the baseball bat was just responding to the sighting. Yep.
Continue to staging point 22.
The guy with the baseball bat was just responding to the sighting. Yep.
3:05.
Mr. Smithstead?
I don't object, Your Honor.
All right, that solves it. All right, let's bring the jury back in.
I'll do it.
Your Honor, I think you've got an agreement that I don't have to have the witness look at the flash drive and say, what's the file cap, fair to say.
It's up to you guys.
Yeah, no, we're not going to be objecting to body cam foundation.
All rise for the jury.
Just turn the mic if Mr. Smith, that's going to do the exam. Please be seated. Members of the jury, thank you for your patience. We are ready to resume. Mr. Smestad, who is the next witness?
Mitch Thomasson.
Deputy Thomasson, please approach. Face the clerk, raise your right hand. She will administer the oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Please have a seat in the witness chair. Mr. Smestad.
How will you state your name, please?
Mitch Thomasson,
How do you spell your last name?
Thomason.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a lieutenant with the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office.
How many years have you been a law enforcement officer?
Over 20.
What are your duties as the lieutenant with the St. Croix County Sheriff's Department generally?
Supervising the patrol unit.
Do you recall July 30th of 2022?
Yes.
Did you get called out due to the Apple River stabbing incident?
Yes.
Were you out in the field doing work?
I was not working that day. I got a page out for our SWAT team was paged out for that incident.
As a lieutenant, is that something that you're typically involved in?
Yes.
All right. Did you get dispatched to a particular area?
The page had the initial incident location. So when I responded to the sheriff's office to grab our drone. And then while I was en route, after I got the drone, while I was en route to Somerset, the updated location of near the rapids is where I responded to.
And when you say the rapids, is that by Village Park?
Yes.
You said you were off duty, but when you responded, were you in uniform?
Correct, yes.
Carrying a sidearm?
Yes.
Where did you first go?
I responded to basically the east side of the river underneath the walking bridge, which is accessible by vehicle by turning off a Main Street or Highway 35 to the south and following a trail.
Had you been given at that point a picture of what the suspect looked like?
Yes.
Do you recall, as you sit here today, what he was wearing in the photograph that you were given, or the picture?
The initial description was a 50s something, white male, no shirt, swim trunks with a gold or a necklace chain. The picture was similar to that.
At the time that you arrived to the area, had the suspect been taken in custody yet?
No.
Because of that, did you use caution when you approached?
Yes.
Did you draw your firearm?
I did.
Explain what happened once you got to the Village Park area.
So I parked my squad, exited. I had my handgun drawn but pointed down. There was a group approaching me, walking on the footpath. What struck me as odd is one of the people in that group was wearing a long sleeve button-up shirt, hat, and glasses. Didn't fit in with the rest of the group. I could see just a little bit of a necklace. I felt that was possibly the suspect that we were looking for. However, I knew a large portion of officers were coming down behind me. So I passed that group to make sure there wasn't, just to rule out that there wasn't anybody else that matched the description. And then behind me, I heard someone yell, that was the person.
Was the defendant part of that group that walked past you as you were going down?
Yes, he was the one wearing the button-up long sleeve shirt, hat, and sunglasses.
Did he make any attempt to flag you down or talk to you?
Nobody did. Nobody looked at me as I walked past with my gun drawn.
How many seconds after you walked past did someone else, some other law enforcement person, recognize him?
Probably within 5 to 10 seconds, because at that point it was a civilian with a baseball bat that yelled, "That's the suspect," or "That's the guy."
Did you see the civilian with the baseball bat?
Yes.
Did he attack the defendant in any fashion?
No, he just pointed at the subject.
At the time this happened, did you have a recollection of how many law enforcement personnel were in that general area at the Village Park? I mean,
Everybody was still responding as the suspect was taken into custody. It was one of our deputies, Deputy Ben Triban, and a Polk County deputy, and then I was standing there. So in the immediate area surrounding the person himself was 3 of us, but it was constantly people showing up. So I don't know a static number of the initially.
once he was, we'll strike that. Were you wearing a body cam that day?
Yes.
Was it recording your activities at Village Park?
Yes.
Did you at some point make contact with Mr. Miu after he had been arrested or detained?
Yes. After he was handcuffed, I escorted him to my squad, placed him in my squad, grabbed my transport belt, just knowing with the incident that this would be a timely process, and then switched out his handcuffs with a transport belt so his hands were handcuffed in front of his body instead of behind, and then placed him in my car.
Yes. Mr. Smestad.
Lieutenant Thomasson, are you aware that your body cam is located on a flash drive that our offices have been holding on to?
Yes.
If I told you it was marked as Exhibit 9, would that make sense to you?
Yes.
We're going to be playing a portion of your body cam from Exhibit 9. I'm not going to ask you questions about it. I'm not going to have you comment about it. We're just going to play it, okay?
Okay.
And we're starting at the 2016 mark.
Advise him he's under arrest? Have we done that yet? Last I heard, when number 9 is going to poke me, prick me, stick me, hurt me in any way. Absolutely.
So right now you're being placed under arrest, okay? You're being placed under arrest for homicide and attempted homicide.
Is that your body cam?
Yes.
That's your voice in the background?
Correct.
And we stopped the judge at 2036.
Thank you.
After informing Mr. Miu what he was charged with, nothing further, Judge.
Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Thomasson. Morning.
Morning.
I'm going to ask you some questions about your arrival at the Village Park where the exit is there, okay?
Mhm.
You observed, let me, can I get that exhibit one time again? Yes, please. 11 maybe, both of them? Thank you. When you observed we saw the video here, just a 20-second clip when you were, do you remember what he looked like there?
Yes,
He didn't have sunglasses on in that picture, correct?
correct,
He didn't have a hat on in that picture, correct?
correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 110, and it's been published before, okay? I want to ask you some questions about that. Permission to publish that. You seen this photo before, sir?
I don't think so.
And I know that, Elmo, there's a bit of a glare. Are you able to see it, or you want me to give it to you in your hand?
That's fine.
Do you see to the left there, a person you now recognize as Nicolae Miu?
Yes,
He's in that photo wearing the shirt that he was wearing when you arrested him.
yes.
He's wearing the necklace that he was wearing when you arrested him.
Well, without confirming it, but it appears to be the same, yes.
He's wearing a necklace.
Yes,
Agreed? He's wearing sunglasses. Agreed.
yes,
He's wearing a hat. Agreed?
yes.
And I think you can even see like the sandals. Agreed?
Mine is cut off on the bottom, but
Miss. You see it there just on the bottom.
it appears so.
So in the photo, exhibit 110, he appears to be wearing the same 6 items of clothing that you saw him wearing when you saw him walking up from the river. Is that right?
In a different manner, but yes,
The shirt was buttoned up, correct?
yes,
But other than that, it's the same clothing, correct?
yes, that appears.
And obviously, he has a different expression on his face at the beginning of the trip than he does at the end of the trip, right?
Correct.
You, when you're back to the village park where the exit is, okay? When you approach there, you said you drew your gun out, correct?
Yes,
Obviously, that's for lots of reasons, but particularly safety. Agreed?
yes,
Your safety first, correct?
yes,
And then the safety of everybody else around there, correct?
yes,
Whether they be victims, witnesses, suspects, citizens, you're concerned about everybody's safety, correct?
yes,
And that's why at that point, even though there's not an immediate threat to you, you have your weapon out, correct?
yes,
That's what you've been trained to do sometimes, correct?
yes,
Be prepared, correct?
yes,
Did you, in that moment, you had information, correct?
yes.
Did you have a particular fear, or is this just, in that instance, were you fearful? Is that why you drew out your weapon?
If I understand correctly, I wasn't responding to how I felt being in danger. I was responding to what the information I was given and to conduct my job properly.
There might be danger. The safest thing to do here is to have my gun drawn.
Yes,
And when it was drawn, again, I'm just trying to gather the facts, not being critical of. Do you understand that?
Mhm.
Yeah, how, when you draw it, do you, we've all watched shows, and so sometimes I see somebody pointing a firearm, sometimes I see them holding it down by their side, sometimes it's with one hand, sometimes it's with 2 hands. As you come down and you make visual assessment that Mr. Miu is there, you don't know at the time that he's Mr. Miu, but now we do. I want to ask about how you're holding the gun then. Does that make sense?
yes,
Can you tell us that?
yes. It was pointed down towards the ground.
Okay, 1 hand, 2 hands?
One hand.
And then as you had it, 1 hand down towards the ground, you're walking past people, correct?
Yes,
And one of those people that you walk past is Mr. Miu, correct?
yes.
And about how far are you? 1 foot, 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet?
I'd say within, let's call it 8 to 10 feet.
Okay. And do you see him standing, walking, jogging, running? What do you see him doing?
So the group that he was with, there was maybe 1 or 2 people between him and I, but they're all walking straight from where I came from, past me and all looking straight ahead.
Okay.
I look at them, see him, and then I'm scanning the area.
So Mr. Miu was with other people and they were all walking at the same pace, correct?
Yes,
Fair to say it would just be a normal human walking pace?
Yes.
You, when you walk past, your thoughts are, that might be the guy, correct?
Yes, similar.
But you also knew that other law enforcement was coming, correct?
Yes.
And in that moment, you made the choice, not critical again, just you made the choice to say, I'm going to keep walking to see if the guy might be down the river, and we'll let the next group of law enforcement deal with this person that might be the guy. Fair to say?
Yes, so my decision was predicated purely on the fact that I knew more officers were arriving.
Yes.
If I knew I was down there by myself, what I believed him to be more than likely the suspect, I would have taken him into custody right away.
Sure. Or I imagine if you believed that he was in that moment posing some sort of immediate danger, you'd address that, correct?
Correct.
But for what you were like, that might be the guy, your danger assessment wasn't heightened based upon your observations of him, correct?
I was not being attacked or threatened to be attacked. I think that's what you mean.
Just, you didn't find a reason at that point to say, even if I think that's the guy, I need to address him right now, right? I'm imagining that's because you're like, in that moment, even if he's the guy, you didn't think he was so dangerous that you needed to address him.
Well, based on what we're told, there's the danger of what was reported.
Absolutely.
But I also need to make sure that I don't mistake somebody else and get ambushed or miss a potential another suspect. So that's why I was looking just to double check. If that makes sense.
Doesn't, but I'm not a law enforcement officer and it doesn't
Okay.
need to. So I appreciate that. There's lots of factors that you're considering, correct?
Yes.
In whatever reason, in that moment, you decided to walk past him and let the next group of officers deal with him, correct?
Yes.
And then they did deal with him, correct?
Yes.
And then you turned around and observed that, correct?
I turned around and assisted.
And by the time you turned around to assist, they were dealing with it, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Miu was not running away, correct?
Correct.
He was cooperating, right?
Yes.
Well, from what you saw, he complied, correct?
Correct.
And at some point, you decided, you saw that he was cuffed with his hands behind his back, correct?
Yes.
That can be an uncomfortable position for some people, agreed?
Yes.
And because of that, you were like, this might be a long time. I'm going to go get, what'd you call it, a belt?
Transport belt.
What is that?
It's a name for it, but it's a Velcro belt, has a D-ring in the front. So then the handcuffs go through the D-ring. So basically, for any extended period of time that someone's restrained, their hands can be in front of them, but then they're secured at their belt line. So if someone wanted to resist or try to do something, their hands are locked at their waist, but it's more comfortable position for a longer duration.
And you knew essentially he was going to be placed inside of a squad car where he would be sitting down, correct?
Yes.
And sitting down with your hands cuffed behind your back can be painful, correct?
Yes.
So that was the purpose, and you're putting him in this belt is for safety and comfort, right?
Safety and then comfort, just knowing that the investigation might be lengthy.
And I'm not critical of your considering both. I just want to make sure that it's not just safety, agreed?
Correct.
It was an additional, you're wearing these things out and saying, I got to do this, got to make sure that he's comfortable and can sit there that long, correct?
Yes.
During that time, when you go get your belt, you come back, you're up close with Mr. Miu, is that right? You assist with putting the transport belt on him?
Yes.
You're like in his personal space, correct?
Yep, correct.
And in that time, he doesn't do anything to you, correct?
No.
You agree?
Yes, correct. He did not do anything to
That
me.
was a poor question on my fault. And because of your job, you have to be essentially in his personal space, right?
Yes.
And when you were in his personal space in that setting, I'm sure you're trying to both keep everybody safe, right?
Yes.
And as part of that, you want to make sure that the person whose space you're in is comfortable, correct?
It's one of the considerations.
Yeah, you don't want to get in somebody's personal space without kind of making sure it's safe for everybody, right?
Yes,
And part of that is you're making that person feel safe even though you're in their space.
correct.
And you did that, right?
I believe so.
And you were safe, correct?
Yes,
Mr. Miu didn't do anything to you, agreed?
he did not.
And when you're in that space, you have an opportunity to make observations of him, correct?
Yes,
Including to smell, correct?
I can, yes.
Because sometimes in cases you've involved, investigation involving matters of alcohol, correct?
Yes,
And one of the things that you can use is your nose to smell if it seems like somebody was consuming alcohol in some way, correct?
yes,
And if you gather that information, you document it in some way, correct?
yes,
And you might pass it on to another person, correct?
yes,
And you might do further testing, correct?
yes,
You didn't document, pass it on, or do further testing regarding Mr. Miu's alcohol use, agreed?
I did not, no.
And the reason you didn't is you had no reason in that moment to suspect that he was somehow intoxicated, right?
Yes, and there was also not a detail that I was concerned about or part of something that I would have been a part of at that point.
Sure. I mean, if you smelled it, you would have noted it, remembered it, told somebody, right?
Yes,
So what we can gather from your not noting it, telling anybody is you didn't smell it.
correct.
During that process, there's also you gained information about there's a citizen out there with a baseball bat, is that right?
Yes,
And this is the citizen that essentially pointed out Mr. Miu to law enforcement, right?
yes,
And do you know if that citizen, we understand he wasn't attacked. I'm not trying to imply that. Do you know where that citizen was in relation to Mr. Miu?
his group hadn't approached that citizen, but they were walking in towards that direction of where the citizen was. But that citizen was also near law enforcement as well.
Was that citizen approaching Mr. Miu?
I heard him yell. When I turned, he was just standing and pointing. And then I was only probably 20 feet away.
Did you come to learn that that citizen's name is Carl Schilling?
I never spoke to the citizen or identified him. Somebody else did. So I don't know who he was identified as.
Okay. There was information exchanged between amongst law enforcement in the presence of Mr. Miu about this guy with the baseball bat. Is that right?
I guess I don't know.
Okay. On your body cam, there's a time when I think we hear you and others talking about the baseball bat while Mr. Miu is right there. Make sense?
Okay.
Let me just play that, all right? I think it is Exhibit 9 at the 248 mark. Permission to play Exhibit 9. I actually paused it at the 247 mark until the 305 mark. Oh, I'm not hooked up. That's why it's not working. Can you press play, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about this.
Right, bear in mind, lunch is here, so.
I got, okay. I'm pressing pause because I didn't have the volume on. Pressing play.
Continue to staging point 22. Westfield.
The guy with the baseball bat was just responding to the sighting. Yep.
I just played from about 247 to 305. That was your body cam?
Yes.
And that was you again doing the transport belt on Mr. Miu?
Yes, I was securing the handcuffs.
And that was Mr. Miu looking around, correct?
Yes.
While the police were talking about the guy with the baseball bat?
Yes.
That's all.
Mr. Mestad, anything else? All right. Thank you, Lieutenant. You are free to go. We're going to break for lunch. Same warnings as before. Please, no independent research or investigation. Do not speak with anyone, including yourselves, about this case. Do not read any media accounts or social media reports or posts about this trial. We will reconvene at 1 p.m. Please take the jury out.
All rise for the jury.
We stand in recess.
Two hearts inside your eyes, can you feel the rush? Closing the gap we made, oh how I miss your touch. Push through the ceiling now, we can raise it up. Am I dreaming?
All right, guys. So it looks like the morning session is over with. Very interesting testimony. I said today was going to be a very interesting day, and it's proved to be. We saw footage of body worn camera, so we're getting a perspective of what the police saw when they came on the scene. One thing we can say is we saw the girl's face who allegedly gets haymakered, and there was no sign of a punch being delivered to her face. That much is very clear. I think that was interesting. We also heard her say, though, right afterwards, I got punched. Now it's my belief, and this is what we had talked about, it developed in chat last night, was that, the idea of the punch, I think, came about because she was pushing on his arm or pushing him. He pushes her back, and if you see in the video, you can see she's got her phone, a vape, and her arm goes back, and essentially somebody calls it being hit, and then eventually it just travels to being punched because obviously they're seeing the severity of everything. So I think it's more of a, he's pushing her back because they're trying to push him down the river. And this is the thing that's got to be fully understood. And Terrence, you've got to understand this. That river is a public space. They were floating the opposite direction. He's snorkeling. They're calling out to him. He gets confused thinking that they're holding a phone up because Mr. Cockfield had that phone around his neck. He's holding it up. That's what baits him over. He can't hear what they're saying. He's in a distance. And they're yelling out things to him. Now, when he says to them, at one point he talks to them and he says, I'm trying to find a girl lost her phone. I'm trying to find a girl's phone. They heard trying to find young girl in that, or at least they just heard girl. And then being the gaslighting kids that they are, who just want to get a rise out of them and cause a problem, that's when they say, oh, you're looking for young girls? What? And then it just travels. And then it amplifies. And then you see what happens as that tape progresses. And then when he comes over, he actually does leave. That's the thing that I don't get when the state says he could have left. He did try to leave. Now, you heard a key testimony today from one of the two girls that comes over and confronts him. And she says, our intention was to create a wall. So her party comes over to create a wall. The problem that you have to understand is the wall they create was walling him off from the direction he needed to go to get back to his group. He had just lost his snorkel. He had just, he clearly wasn't going to be able to find the phone. He's trying to explain to these people, I'm trying to find a phone. I've lost my snorkel. That's what he's trying to tell the new people as they're coming on. These kids are just shouting louder and louder. He's trying to find little girls. We got it on. He said it. We got it on camera. They don't have it on camera. That's not what he says. He's telling them about trying to find the phone. So what happens? Now it accelerates. It goes to the next level. That next level is these kids that came over to try to separate this thing think, oh my God, this guy's out here trying to harass girls on the lake. They become angry. They start screaming at him. Get the F down the lake. Get your ass down there. He's being threatened, given 10 seconds. And then you have, of course, Mr. Cockfield's battle cry to kick his ass when he says, for the culture, do it for the culture. What are we doing for the culture? What are we doing for the culture, Mr. Cockfield? We looked it up last night on the live when we were on there. What does it mean? For the culture means you do something that you wouldn't normally do for the good of the group. And in their eyes, as they're shouting pedophile, as they're shouting, he's harassing young girls, he's trying to look at young girls, we have him on tape, do it for the culture. And then they start pushing on him. And what do the young girls start to do? They start putting their hands on him, pushing him down the lake. And then he pushes the girl's hand off of him because they're trying to push him. He's on the rocks. The more they push him, he could fall. And then when he essentially defends himself, Dante hears, oh, you just hit a girl. You just hit a girl. Not punched a girl. You just hit a girl. Because somebody saw him essentially move the hand, push her back. And then Dante just comes over and bam, pow, right in the face. And then Isaac and, of course, the other person, AJ, in the party with Dante, they converge on him and they start hitting him. When does the stabbing happen? Watch the video. Nobody can tell, right? They slow it down and they still it out. It happens when they're converging on him. They're punching him. They're hitting him on the rocks. He's trying to get up. What's he doing? He gets the knife out and he starts trying to get these people off of him. He's not stabbing with an intent to kill. He's stabbing with an intent. Get the hell away from me. I'm a 52-year-old man who's had heart surgery, who's now getting beat up on the rocks. I could lose my life here. I could hit my head. I could become unconscious and flip over. And you know what? Not one person in that group is going to drag him out because they think he's a pedophile. They think he was looking at young girls. So what happens? He starts stabbing and then he runs off. And he gets the hell away from the situation. He doesn't continue stabbing. He doesn't stab him 25 times after the threat dissipates. He gets the hell out of there. And he gets back to where he wanted to go or was trying to go, back to his group. And then they start leaving. Now, he's not anticipating that he stabbed anybody fatally. He's figuring, okay, they might have some stab wounds or whatever's going on, but he ain't going down to check on them. And there isn't any police anywhere that's on the river. And he just says, let's go. Let's get the hell out of here. Now, what he would have done when he got home, what might have happened, how it transpired, hell, he might have gone and filed a police report himself. We never find that out because what happens? Obviously, the medics get called, the police get called, and boom, he gets, as we saw in the footage a little bit ago, we see the police come over and detain him and then arrest him. So we have now reached the end of the AM session. So we are going to end the stream for a little bit and then we will be back. I believe the PM session's probably already started. We're going to be a little bit behind, but I'm going to take a few minute break, get the stream up because it'll only run 6 hours. So I don't want it to cut off in the middle of the PM session. And then we will be back up here in a few moments. So be looking for the stream to pop back up. I know we got 23 of you in there. Hopefully we can all make it back in. So we're going to go ahead and call this thing, guys. I appreciate everybody that watched. Hit the like button on the way out. We're only at 5 likes. We've got 22 people. We have some work to do. That way this stream can get pushed out there and more people can see it because they need to see today's testimony. Today's a very good day. I'm working on cutting up the testimony to get it out in smaller portions so the people who enjoy watching smaller amounts can watch it. And we'll go from there. See you guys in a minute.
Two hearts inside your eyes, can you feel the rush? Closing the gap we made, oh how I miss your touch. Push through the ceiling now, we can raise it up. Am I dreaming?